Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 156. It's Wednesday, the 18th of April. Dennis Gradapi with Kasper Ozolowski with a fun episode of Submission Radio for you guys. And it's all happening. I feel like the t-shirt game this week is strong with Submission Radio. First of all, obviously, I am wearing the Kramer Giddy Up t-shirt. Here it is. Don't know if you guys can see it. And you, Kasper, are sporting some Dragon Ball Z goodness as well. So it smiles all around here at Submission Radio today.
Yeah, a little bit of classic. This is one I've been wearing for a very, very long time, but I think first on video it is, in case you can't see it, training to beat Goku, or at least Krillin. The joke never gets old because obviously Krillin, doesn't fight for all, and he dies many times. But yeah, you mentioned sexy show. It is a sexy show. We got sexy guests, spicy guests. Tyson Pedro will be the first one joining us on the program. He's got a big fight coming up against OSP. Straight after this highlight reel submission over Safarov here in UFC 221 in Perth. So I'm very excited to be chatting to Tyson Pedro. And when you have one of the half-cast podcasts, you have to have the whole thing. It's a complete package. So we do have Tai Tuivasa, or should I call him Tai Tuivasa? We haven't decided yet. We've got him on the program as well. Talk about his massive fight with Andrei Arlovski. We used to get him in a combo. We used to get him both at the same time, a nice fun dynamic. But I feel like they're at the point now where they deserve and they need their own interviews. So I'm really, really excited to be chatting to both the boys on this episode. Can't wait for that one. Jake Shields is joining us. Obviously the PFL, that's been in the news this past week, and Jake Shields is probably one of the biggest names in the PFL, at least in the welterweight/middleweight category. So very excited to be talking about Jake Shields, or to Jake Shields, get his thoughts on the PFL, the general structure, the negotiating, a whole bunch of things there as well. And of course, Israel Adesanya picked up his win over Marvin Vettori this past weekend. The bad blood continues. Marvin obviously not very happy with some of the antics afterwards. Israel being very, very harsh on himself and his performance. I think a lot of people on Twitter and the internet being harsh on Israel, so we thought we'd get him on the program, Skype video to talk to him about a whole bunch of things, reflect on the win, and talk about what's next for him. And of course, our sexy, sexy Irish friend. We've got one more guest, don't we, Dennis?
That's right. He was on last week and he's back this week. Sheehan joins us to talk about the craziness from UFC Glendale, talk about Carlos Condit. What do we think about him? How did he look? Obviously, he lost. Do we think he should hang it up? Do we think he should keep going? We talk about the crazy main event between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Should Poirier get the next title shot? We'll be discussing that at the end of the show. Plus a lot more. Sheehan talks about the big fights coming up this coming weekend. So stay tuned. That's at the end of the program. And Kasper mentioned it. We have some exciting Skype video interviews. If you guys haven't checked it out, Submission Radio. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube right now, a big hi to you wherever you guys are listening to. We are on video. So if you do check this show out on iTunes or TuneIn or Stitcher or SoundCloud or any other place that Submission Radio is available, just remember, if there's an interview that you enjoy and it's on video, you can jump on a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU, subscribe and check it out. I feel like it adds a little bit of a dynamic to some of the interviews. Last week, we interviewed Stephen Thompson. It was personally one of the most enjoyable interviews that I've done in quite some time, just because we're able to chill out with him. He was chilling on his couch, and the video element kind of gave it more of a chilled out vibe, just a bunch of friends hanging out, talking about what's going on in their lives. So if you guys haven't listened to that interview yet and you want to check out a fun interview that has a cool video element to it, jump on a YouTube page, check that out, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU, facebook.com/Submission Radio AUS, and of course, at Submission AUS on Twitter.
And just quickly, Ronda Rousey's mum was also on a couch with a yellow cushion. Very, very important to note. So I feel like the good interviews, they're all based on couches. I'm curious who's going to be on a couch this week.
Yeah, couches. I feel like where they're relaxed is where you're going to get the most out of your guests. And just quickly, before we do jump to our first interview, just a quick reminder for everybody down here in Australia and New Zealand, Anzac Day next Wednesday. You can pick up these cool bracelets. They're $3 each, and the money goes towards the Anzac Appeal that goes to all the veterans and all the families, soldiers and stuff like that. Something cool to get, give back, and check that out. You guys can get that online or just at your shopping centers. But anyway, guys, without further ado, Cass, you mentioned We have a sexy, spicy lineup, a bit of an Australian flair, New Zealand flair in this episode, which I'm happy. I'm happy to talk to these guys making big waves locally from here. We have one of them on the line, and you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys, our next guest is coming off a highlight reel submission at UFC Perth and will now be taking on Ovin St. Preux at UFC Singapore on June 23rd. One half of the Halfcast podcast, owner of one of the sexiest entrances in the UFC, Tyson Pedro. Welcome back to the Submission Radio. How are you?
What's going on, gentlemen? Very good, very good.
How about that? When was the last time someone told you had one of the sexiest entrances in the UFC?
Walkouts. First time I've heard it. So.
Oh, how about that? And an interview as well. It's been a good day. Now I hear you're over at Cowboys Ranch, Tyson. Can you give us a little bit? Give us a little bit of a view. You look like you're in one of the accounting rooms or something. There. We're
at a friend's house at the moment. I had to get onto the Wi-Fi so I could do this interview with you, but then we're heading back up to the ranch. Awesome.
And what's the plan? What's the plan today? Is he going to have you going and flipping cars or anything?
No, nothing today. We just finished up I just finished my last session with Wink. I'm absolutely destroyed. So we're pretty much at the second day of camp, and it was bound to go in hard. So yesterday we had 3 sessions, and then today 2 sessions, and my body's just in shock still.
Wow. So you obviously went to Jackson Winklejohn's, the camp before for Latifi. Last camp you were in Brisbane. How come you decided to come back to Jackson's this time around?
Well, I only stayed in Australia last fight because the fight was in Perth. So it's just a lot of travelling to do when I was already fighting in Australia. This one I'm going to be here for a few weeks. I think 4 or 5. Then I'm going to head home for 4 and then finish off the camp somewhere either in Australia or close to there. The plus 16 hours messes me up. So I think Singapore plus 14. So that's just that I get trashed by the jet lag.
Have you decided who's going to be in your corner on fight night? Is Coach Wink making the trip down? Have you decided yet?
No, I haven't yet. Just depends who I'm working with. I love working with Wink and that, but if I'm working with someone else more, it's harder to bring someone else. Especially if I'm gone for 7 weeks after it.
You also spoke about how when you were at Wink last time, sort of the game planning and the heavy tape watching. Maybe it wasn't really for you because on fight night you kind of felt, I don't know what the word would be, maybe constrained. It just didn't really feel natural to you. And then, with the Brisbane camp, you sort of felt more like yourself. How are you tackling it this time? How are you, I guess, incorporating, the tape watching and the heavy game planning this time around?
Yeah, no, I'll go back to the game planning. I do like the game planning. It's just I've got to suit it to myself. I wouldn't say it was that's what threw me off in the Latifi fight. There was a lot of stuff that didn't come together. That just didn't make it work out on the night. So I don't think that's particularly a part. I do like the game planning, and you have to at this level, especially with someone like OSP.
Now, we know Jackson Winklejohns has a great plethora of fighters in there. Who are you sparring with? Who are you training with? What 205ers are you working with? And are you also working with the heavyweights as well?
No, I've been trying to stay away from the heavyweights. I'm not a big fan of them. I've been injured quite a few times working with heavyweights.
Really?
Yeah, just
over at Jackson's or?
But everywhere. Jackson's working with Ty. Ty's just as fat. So, not fat. He's a fat leap.
What about the light heavyweights? Who have you been working with over at Jackson's?
There's not many here at the moment, but they're going to be getting here soon. I think Derek might be coming over. Brunson, but yeah, we'll be heading up to the ranch. There's a few people up here. I like working with the middleweights as well. You have really high pace and a lot of skill as well, so it makes a big difference.
What about Cowboy? Obviously, you're at the ranch. Is he there? Is he training you? What's that like? I mean, he's obviously a smaller guy, but probably a very fast guy.
Looks like a close relationship.
It's not yet. We're not boyfriends yet, but
working on it.
Working on it. Hit on him a couple of times. No, it's been good. I've got one of my other mates here, Cameron Else. He fights in Bellator, and I've been working a lot with him. But when I'm rolling with Cowboy, it's the same. He just complains about me being fat, so you get that from both sides. But yeah, he's just very technical as well, and he's just crazy fit. It's just non-stop with him. I'll start losing too much weight if I try and keep up with their pace. They're like mountain bike in the morning, straight to the swim, then to wrestle, then to class, then back. Let's go shoot some guns. Then it's just non-stop. I'm like, okay, I need a nap here. This is designated nap time.
Obviously, you and Ty do the Half-Cast podcast. What happens to the podcast while you go over to the camp? Are you guys on hiatus for now? And also, did you manage finding those lost tapes that you guys can locate?
No, we didn't. Still sent him a couple of messages, and it's still sitting there. I'm hoping we can still get that back. That's annoyed me a little bit, but probably wait until we get back. Now, I'm not going to bother him while he's in camp. If I get back to Australia, I'm pretty sure he's still there. I was supposed to call him after this interview. If he's still there when I get back, we'll get in a couple of episodes.
Do you think you'll make it up to Chicago to watch him and Rob fight, or do you reckon you'll be too busy instead of camp?
I was trying to get over there for a guest fighter, but that was as long as I was in the States still. But because I'm heading over to Australia, I think I'm going to miss it.
Bummer.
Well, tell us, what do you think about fighting in Singapore? Because that's an interesting place to have a fight.
I'm excited. I've always wanted to be part of the Asian market, mainly because I just grew up watching Mark, in the biggest crowds in front of Asia. I just always had that desire to fight in Japan and Asia. So it's exciting for me.
You can be like Homer Simpson. There'll be like a soda named after you. It'll be like Mr. Tyson or something like that.
Exactly. I would love that.
Do you
that's
know
where the money is.
I don't know who we need to speak to, but that's what I would like.
Get your manager Zen on it. Do you know if you guys are the main card or are you on prelims? And do you really
No
care?
idea. No, don't care. No idea. It's a fight night. Like I always want to get on when we're on main cards. I always want to when we're in numbered card. I always want to get on the main event. With fight night, I'm not too worried. Like it's cool because actually sometimes more people watch the fight nights. But I just don't want to push for it on there.
Sure. Did you notice?
That'll be still cool.
Yeah, did you notice the poster? Obviously, it's St. Preux versus Pedro. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say. It's St. Preux versus Pedro.
Yeah, because I got in trouble for it.
What do you mean you got in trouble for it?
Because I'm supposed to wait to put up the poster. Are you about to say that I'm in front of it, in front of OSP?
What were you gonna say? You spilled the beans too early.
No, what were you gonna say?
So you announced the fight and you jumped the gun a little bit too early. Is that what happened?
No, I didn't. I didn't jump the gun. Someone jumped the gun.
Someone on your social media.
No, not even me. Like I didn't get in trouble. I lied. They hit me up, going, "What are you doing?" But it was because someone released it way early. Like I woke up and I was like, "That's interesting. I thought OSP was ranked above me." And that's what they do with the posters. They put the person ranked above you in front. Yeah. And I was like, that's weird that they put me in the front. And then I got a message going, this isn't the official poster. And everyone had shared it, and it was too late. So now it's like, I'm sort of happy because everyone shared the one with me in front.
Now, that is the official poster. Like,
exactly.
are they going to... That's the one. So are they going to re-release it now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure. That's some inside information that I don't know. But I just remember getting the text and I was like, oh, here we go.
Wow. Well, what do you think about having OSP as your next opponent?
It's exciting for me. Like,
Did you have some other people? You seem very indifferent. You're kind of like, whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. They offered me like above me and below me, and either way I was gonna fight. So I don't know. Why not take the guy in the top 10?
Have you paid much attention to his recent run? He was actually on a really good 3-fight win streak before he lost to Latifi. What do you think of him recently?
Yeah. Oh, he's an animal. He's a pure athlete. I haven't watched much of his tape yet. I think the last thing I saw was like the highlight kick of Corey Anderson. I missed the Latifi fight. I haven't seen that yet. So he's just a freak. Like, you see how strong he is. Like, for him just to let people grab the guillotine so he can Von Flue. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, Jackson Winklejohn have a good idea about him. John Jones obviously fought him. When you came to the camp, did Coach Wink and Greg Jackson, did they already have sort of some past information from previous fights that they sort of could give you some inside tips and some little things to help with the game plan?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also working with Coach Gibson this camp as well.
First time?
First time. And that's been cool. So between him, Wink, and Coach Jackson, I think we've got a good thing going here.
Got the A-team going on. You mentioned the Latifi fight before, obviously your first professional loss. And it was also sort of like a big step up in competition. This kind of seems like, I guess that next sort of, it's almost like a do-over. This is another big step up in competition. Do you feel like you're a little bit more ready for it this time around?
I feel like I was ready for the Latifi fight, to be honest. Like I was just ready for every fight. It was just it's like with everything. That's why there's so much stuff going into fights. Like you don't know like who's had a fight with their girlfriend that day, who's thinking like I don't know, someone had a bad sleep. There's just so much that goes into it that like can affect fight night, and I don't know what affected it that much, but it did. And I knew that. I think I said it on the last show when I was walking back and forth in the cage, and I was like, I wonder where my wife's sitting. I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be a good night.
Did that ever bother you? Like, was this in Perth? Were you was your mind wandering, and you were like, where's your wife at that point?
In Perth, I was on.
In Perth, you didn't care where the wife was sitting.
No, don't put me on this. I
had to get some revenge on you from our last interview.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so. I don't know. It didn't come together, and on the last fight, I just you know when you're on. Like as soon as I walked in and I looked at Safarov, you sort of it's like the zone, I guess.
Is there any extra confidence for you knowing that Latifi choked OSP out in the first round, but you went the distance with Latifi and you looked pretty good in a lot of parts of the fight?
No. No, I can understand why people say that. It's crazy with fights what can happen. Like I could have gotten clipped in that first round. Latifi's a beast. He's got very hard hits. I didn't even think I got hit in that fight until I watched it back, and had vertigo for the next 2 weeks. But he's just an animal, and and so is OSP, and that's the fight game. Everyone's at like this level now where it's like that much between getting knocked out and winning.
I think that's a very fair assessment. I think you're very grounded and sort of down to earth, and that's what sort of keeps things real with you. We'll let you go in a moment because I know you've got sort of bigger and probably more fun plans with Cowboy and the guys and everything at the ranch. But the music choice, at what point do you sort of start thinking about the entrance song and sort of deciding what you're going to go with?
I just did a video for like an advert. I won't say the company yet, just in case I don't want to release it yet. But and that was part of the video. So probably like I don't know, a week out. It's definitely like I've made it a thing in Australia now. I'm keeping sexual in Australia. It's not going anywhere. It's just.
Because I was going to say, like, last time with Perth, you were teasing it. You were like, oh, it's going to be a big one. And then you defaulted to sexual. And I feel like you've done it a few times. So was there something else that you were thinking about doing instead?
For the last fight, I can't remember what song we had. There was another song and I was going to do it, but then we...
How come you didn't? Because you wanted to keep the sexual streak?
Because I spoke to my coaching staff and, the important parts of the fight game.
Yeah.
I don't imagine Coach Wink is going to be very receptive when you try and get his thoughts on a walkout.
No, he does not give a shit. Even when, I don't know if you've seen it, when we're walking out and like my family's dancing and he's just behind there like, stone face killer.
Yeah. Is there a deadline when you have to tell the UFC by? Like when is the deadline where they're like, all right, Tyson, we need to know now?
They try and get it early, but I think like 2 weeks, 3 weeks is like pushing it.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of exciting things when you come out, what about your nickname? Because we thought Bone Collector was in the running. Seeing as you collecting those bonus checks, you had that great performance in Perth. Is that in the running, or are we sort of past that now?
No way.
It's a good movie as well with Denzel Washington. If people
love that movie, love that movie. But like I think I said it on the last time, if I come up with, it's so hard to have nicknames. I don't know, because then I'm the boner collector. Like two fights later, you know how Australians are.
It was actually Flow Combat that you said that to, not us. But do you want any nickname? Like, are you open to any nickname, or do you just kind of want to keep it Tyson Pedro forever?
No, at the moment we'll just stay with Tyson Pedro. I don't know. I don't really need a nickname. I don't think.
You should ask Ty to pick your nickname.
Hell no.
You don't trust him to pick a nickname for you?
Not one bit. I couldn't think of anyone worse to pick a nickname for me.
All right. Well, you're a busy guy, so we want to quickly grab the prediction from you before you go. How do you see yourself sort of winning this fight? Is there a sort of scenario in your head?
We've been going through some game plans, but it hasn't come to me yet. It usually comes to me about halfway through the camp. I always try and finish in the first round. You guys know that. But I have a feeling he's going to try and drag it out and make it a bit slower of a fight, maybe second round.
And you're not going to let him do that, right?
No, I want the first round still.
All right, well, there you go, guys. Tyson Pedro versus over in St. Preux, UFC Singapore, June 23rd. For all the Aussies and New Zealanders, obviously going to be the 24th because of the time difference. Follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Tyson_Pedro_. Just quickly, why the underscore at the end? Have you ever thought about getting rid of that?
I think it was because it wasn't available.
So there's another Tyson Pedro running around with your name.
Well, I don't know if it's Tyson Pedro or someone's going to try and sell me my Instagram account later down the line.
All right, well, yeah, we'll get some people in the Cayman Islands to take care of that. But either way, thank you so much for your time and have fun at the ranch, Tyson. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, boys.
Thanks, Tyson. Take care.
Hey guys, it's TP Miocic, UFC heavyweight champion, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is currently taking the heavyweight division by storm. Now on a 2-fight win streak, takes on Andrei Arlovski at the stacked and Aussie-filled UFC 225 in Chicago. The king of the Shoey. It is him again, Tai Tuivasa, Tai Tuivasa. He just got a sexy haircut, and he's joining us on video. Welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you, mate?
Good, brothers. How are you?
Good. Now, Ty, before we talk about this Andrei Arlovski fight, we saw on Instagram that you went overseas with Mark Hunt to watch the Parker versus Joshua fight. Tell us, how did that sort of pop up, and how was that experience?
No, it was good. We planned it after my last fight, actually, in Perth. But, yeah, it was good to go over there and support one of the Samoan brothers. So it was good.
Were there any good stories, any good... I saw you were training over there. You were doing a bit of sightseeing, but did you guys have any funny stories from your trip? Did you guys end up hanging out with Parker, or did you end up going out and having any epic nights while you were over there?
No, I didn't get to catch up with Parker, but we got on the piss on the night of the fight. That was for sure. So that was good.
Mm. What did you think of the fight, just quickly? Because some people were a bit disappointed by it. Other people were really impressed with Parker's performance. What did you think?
I didn't think it was all that. I think Parker was a lot faster and could have did probably a bit more work. But I think the ref was a dickhead as well. But you know, a fight's a fight, and it's just how you rock up on the day, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the ref caught a lot of flack for that one. But looking at you, I mean, the Aussie takeover continues at UFC 225. Andrei Arlovski, what was your reaction when you finally got him and saw that he was going to be your next opponent?
I was grateful. I was grateful I got a fight, and then I was even more happy I got a fight against a guy with such caliber and such a big name in the industry. But I think it's just a stepping stone for me. I gotta keep moving forward.
Well, I know you don't watch too many fights, but did you know who Arlovski was when you got him? Because he's a bit of a legend, I suppose. A lot of fans watched him for a really long time.
Yeah. I knew who Andrei Arlovski was. What's happening, my man? What are you doing? But like I said, I've got to fight these guys, and these are the guys that are in front of me, and I think I've got what it takes to beat these guys, and in Bam Bam style. So just keep taking it fight by fight, and hopefully keep getting the wins.
That's what people expect, nothing less, Bam Bam style. Did you watch his last fight by any chance, and what did you think of it? Because he obviously utilized a lot more wrestling, which he never really did throughout his career. He's primarily been a striker, even though he's got the Sambo background. Which Arlovski are you expecting on the night?
I think he's gonna come and wrestle me. I think that's a lot of. I think that's going to be a lot of the opponent's approach. But to me, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? As long as I train and I get my fat ass in shape, I should be sweet, bro. You know what I mean? A punch on's a punch on.
I mean, obviously, you're one of the biggest rising stars in the division. Did you have some other options apart from Arlovski, or was he the only one that the UFC presented to you?
Yeah, I said Arlovski or Struve, and then obviously Arlovski won, and so. Bro, I really don't. I don't give a shit about any of that shit. I just rock up and fight.
Well, I saw recently in an interview you were sort of talking about the division, looking at the whole division. You said basically you've got a puncher's chance against anybody in the division. I mean, puncher's chance. I feel like you're selling yourself short a little bit.
Well, that's all it takes, you know what I mean? There's a punch. So, no, I just say that. I think in any fight, that's with anybody. I think anyone's got a puncher's chance, and I say that just because that I think that I can beat most of the people in front of me.
I mean, obviously, people don't see the hard work that you put in before your fights. You do a lot of hard training. What do you kind of think is the biggest thing that you're sort of working on and have improved in training over the last few training camps that people don't really know about?
Well, I don't know.
Secret.
I'm not doing a lot of wrestling and a bit of jiu-jitsu and as well, but I think after this fight, I'm gonna look to maybe head overseas and put some time in a proper into a proper gym over there and learn a lot of stuff. I think I have to get to the next level. And I know that if I get really good on the ground and be around some of those guys that really are good on the ground, I don't think probably many or any could beat me after that.
It's interesting you say that because last time when we spoke, we had you and Tyson on, obviously Tyson Pedro, and he was saying, we sort of threw it out there like, what if you went to Jackson Winklejohn's? And Tyson said, it's not really your style. So what was it that made you, I guess, what was the moment that made you think, you know what, I'm probably going to go overseas for the next fight?
It's not really that. I think it's more people. I need training partners that can, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
The level and the people, there's not many people that are close by here. So if I go to a camp, I'm not saying Jackson's, I probably won't go to Jackson's. They're like small, aren't they?
There's some big guys. Alistair Overeem's there. Obviously Tyson Pedro's there. Who else is there? There's a bunch of heavyweights.
I've been thinking of AKA.
Oh, yeah.
But
What do you like about AKA? Cormier and Cain Velasquez, all those guys with their wrestling, yeah?
Yeah. I like their good wrestlers, and I don't know. I like Javier. It's pretty good.
Have you met him before? Have you had a chat with him before?
Yeah, I've met him a couple of times. So.
And there's obviously that connection with Soa Paleli and AKA over in Thailand. So a little bit of history there with some of your friends as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the fact that it almost seems like that the UFC have sort of really gotten behind you. I mean, we want to talk to you about the new contract, but how do you just feel about the fact that it seems like the UFC have really gotten behind you and are kind of trying to fast track you to the top of the division with some big fights?
I think it's cool. I think it's even better when I start earning more money. But you know, I think that I'm worth it. I think that I put on good shows, and I will always come to put on a show for the crowd and try my best. So they should like me.
I think there's a lot of reasons to like you. I think when someone does a Shoey post-fight and it takes off and goes viral, there's a lot of reasons to like you.
I'm a lovable chap, you know what I mean?
Lovable chap, nice new haircut. What's not to like? KO wins. But I was going to say...
Right in the middle of Mount Druitt, Westfield.
Was that a fan that recognized you before when you said hi?
And a friend, yeah.
What's your life been like? I want to talk about the contract in a second, but what's your life been like since joining the UFC? Because, you know what, a year and a half ago or so, you're on the sidelines, you're rehabbing your knee, you know, you're waiting to make your debut, and now you've taken things by storm. How different is your life now?
No, not really that different, other than, you know, a lot more people notice me. Like you said, I was injured for a year, and that was a fucking shit year, you know. I had the birth of my son. I couldn't move. yeah, just heaps of, you know, I was probably at the lowest point of my life, but that also gave me a whole year to think about where I was going and what I was going to do, and now it's all just falling into place and it's all coming together. So it took me a long time and a lot of thinking to get to where I am now, but fuck it, we're here now.
I was gonna say, why were you so low? I mean, because it seemed like once your knee was fixed, you'd make it to the UFC. Was there ever any doubts in your mind, or why were you so low at that point?
I snapped my knee, so that was a year I couldn't fight. A year I couldn't make money. My missus was pregnant. I was just about to have my son. I woke up out of surgery. I had no arm, so I was with no arm and no leg, no arm for 8 months. Yeah, it's just fucking shit. I was just sitting on the lounge doing nothing. Couldn't even provide for my family, you know, and that's a hard time for me.
Well, now look at you. You're one of the biggest stars in the heavyweight division. We mentioned the contract before. We know you signed a new one. You mentioned how you'd like to be making a bit more money. Are you happy with the new deal that you signed?
For now, you know, I believe you have to work to get to where you want to be, and I'm doing that, I think, and I think that if I put away these next fight and the next couple ones in good style, then I should be getting to where I want to be.
Do you think maybe, because it's a 4-fight deal, do you think maybe you'd be looking to renegotiate that contract, sort of, you know, if you get this win and then another win, maybe?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I'm always negotiating after everyone.
Casper mentioned it in the intro. It's almost looking like an Aussie card at UFC 225. You got Robert Whittaker on there, obviously yourself. You got Megan Anderson on there. How's it kind of feel to have a strong Aussie support on this card? It's almost like a bit of a takeover.
Brother, it is a takeover. I told everyone it was a takeover 2 years ago. No one believed me, you know what I mean? Yeah, I think it's awesome. Like, fuck, we all get to be there. Rob, I got a message off Rob, you know, he's like, fuck yeah, he's like, let's do it. Like, you know,
is that really what he said? Was Robert Whittaker like, fuck yeah? Because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy. We've never heard Robert Whittaker swear.
Oh, well then, I don't know. No comment. No.
Well, you... Yeah.
Oh, I don't really swear much either.
You know, it's funny, though, because looking at you and sort of what you bring to the heavyweight division, you spoke to us last time about how, like, you think the heavyweight division's a bit boring. Do you think you're that guy? Like, that's part of your value, that you can be that kind of guy that makes it exciting again? For
sure. I think the days of the old school heavyweight, you know, that's the fighting I used to watch. They were just like bad, ruthless, you know, just blew us. You know, if they had something to say. I think it's just boring. Everyone's worried about fucking how people look at them and shit like that. I don't care. So I'm just gonna do my thing and keep doing it.
I wanted to mention this before, you know, looking at the Aussie card, UFC 225, you got Rob, you got Megan. What was your reaction when you saw Megan's version of the Shoey the other day? I know you retweeted it, so you obviously saw it. She basically just put a stubby in her shoe, you know, Chuck Taylor, and then drank it out. That's not really a Shoey.
I haven't seen that.
No?
I haven't seen that.
She basically, because you retweeted it, and you were saying something about how you'll show her how to do a proper Shoey. What she did was she didn't actually drink from the shoe. She just put a stubby in the shoe and then drank from the stubby.
I can't hear you. What happened? Did I retweet it?
Yeah, well, you or someone. Basically, it was Megan Anderson. She put a stubby inside a shoe, inside of a Converse shoe, but then she just drank from the stubby with the shoe hanging on the bottom, so it wasn't a real shoey.
That's not a fucking shoey.
Are you going to show her in Chicago?
I'll have a word with her about it.
All the glory with none of the risk. I guess the ultimate shoey would be a Joe Rogan shoey post-fight after a big victory in Chicago. Do you think that could be possibly on the cards live on pay-per-view?
If he's there, I'm asking him for his shoe, and I want him to spit in it too.
Wait, when are you gonna ask him in cage? Like, let's say you win, he comes in, does the post-fight interview. You're gonna try and get him to do it in cage?
why not? If we can, for sure.
Oh, wow. That would be amazing.
It's going to be an exciting night. We know you're a busy man. You just got a haircut. You're over at the shopping center now. Just quickly, before we let you go, what is the prediction? I mean, how do you see this fight playing out with Andrei Arlovski? If you had to be specific, we know you're feeling a KO here, but are you looking at the first round? Do you think it's more of a second round? How do you think it finishes?
Man, I just prepare to fight for the whole three rounds, and I go out there and we throw some hands, and whatever happens. And I'm gonna keep doing what I do, and that's put these hands on people, and if it hurts them, it hurts them. If it doesn't, then they got a hard fucking head.
Yeah, so it's the Cyril Asker special. So of course, go in, win, beat Andrei Arlovski, and then Shoey with Joe Rogan. Any words for Joe Rogan if he's listening? If he catches wind of this, any message to him? Basically, getting his shoe ready for you, right?
Joe, wear the dirtiest shoes you have. Because the dirtiest shoe. Filthy.
Wow, there you go. Andrei Arlovski versus Tai Tuivasa at UFC 225. June 9th in Chicago. It's going to be the 10th here in Australia and New Zealand because of the time difference. And on pay-per-view, maybe even a Shoey with Joe Rogan. The challenge is there. Don't forget to follow him at Bam Bam Tuivasa on Twitter and Instagram. Tai, we know you just got a haircut, so thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Always great having you on.
Boys. Take care, all right?
Thanks, Tai. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Demetrius Johnson, the UFC flyweight champion of the world, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a former Strikeforce champion who holds wins over names such as Tyron Woodley, Dan Henderson, Jason Miller, Robbie Lawler, Paul Daly, Carlos Condit, and many others. He is now fighting for the PFL for his chance to win $1 million in the welterweight division. Jake Shields, welcome back to Submission Radio. It's great to have you on the program, man.
Hey, yeah, no problem, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, always good, man. Great to have you back. And of course, it's exciting times in the world of MMA, and of course for yourself, since the community found out more information about the PFL and the money on offer for the winners of the tournament. So tell us, what was your reaction when you found out sort of the structure and the plan for Season 1?
Yeah, well, they talked about it a while ago, so it's taken a little longer to come together than originally planned. So that was a little frustrating, but it's nice that it's finally here. Money signing bonus is cleared, so it shows it's really taking place, and they got the money, and it's paying pretty good, so I definitely can't complain. I think it's an exciting format. We have 2 fights to get in the tournament, and then they do an 8-man tournament.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into that, you mentioned that it was a little bit frustrating, and I imagine that because obviously for fans and people who are curious about the transition from World Series of Fighting to PFL, we were all kind of waiting and curious. We heard about this tournament for a while. What was that like for you? And was that tough, kind of, I guess, planning your life around expecting to maybe start the tournament a little bit earlier?
Yeah, it was supposed to start in January, and then it got pushed back, which you can understand why. It was a lot of planning for them to do. I don't think they had quite the team and the structure to do it that fast. They got a little ahead of themselves. So it was, so they had a lot of planning to make sure, because once it gets going, it's got to run. I think every other week they're doing fights. It has to run smooth. But now they got everything worked out. They got the lineups. They got the location. So it's ready to kick off. I think mine's not till July 5th. I think the first show kicks off early June.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's 2 fights to get into the tournament. And from what we read, the first 2 fights are compensated with the traditional show and win contracts, and that each fighter sort of negotiated their own deal, just like the traditional kind of MMA pay structure. So does that mean you have to renegotiate what you'd be getting for those 2 fights, or is that still the same deal that you were on when you were fighting for them earlier?
Yeah, for me, it was basically the same deal I was on before. There were some small changes, but it was pretty much the same deal I was already on. And then the tournament pay is, I don't know if it's the same for everyone or if it's different, but I know it's $1 million for all the champs.
So just to clarify, was it that you negotiated and it ended up being the same deal, or the deal basically just rolled over and it was, I guess, like an addendum to the contract because you're in a new tournament?
I think we pretty much just rolled it over. I know we were talking back and forth a little bit before, because I had an option not to re-sign because it went past the time where I was supposed to fight on my contract. So we were back and forth a little bit, but more or less just kept the same contract.
Why did you decide to re-sign? Because you just mentioned you had an opportunity not to. What kept you there?
I just think it's going to be some excitement. I think the show is going to build some excitement. I mean, obviously it's paying pretty good as well, but I think they're I think the rebranding is going to be good for it. I think they're going to start building some hype. I mean, hopefully, and I like the format of the tournament. You know, I fought a tournament once years ago.
Rumble on the Rock, yeah, like, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so I said, don't know if I'm going to do this again, but then I guess it's kind of exciting too. You know, now that I'm probably not fighting much longer, I'm like, oh, it'll be fun to go out there and win another big tournament.
When you were in that time period, did you think about maybe reaching out to the UFC and maybe going back there or touching with Bellator, or was it just you thinking about it without really sort of getting in touch with any of the other competition?
I definitely was thinking about Bellator and stuff. I never really talked to Scott, but Bellator, you know, they seem to be doing really well and building. It was definitely something I thought about, but didn't really get into talks with them because I was, you know, working it out with World Series or Pro Fight League the whole time.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about
the ACB a little bit? Some of the guys there as well.
Okay, so you talked with everyone basically.
Just a little bit, you know, I was just kind of feeling around, seeing what's out there. But ultimately, I liked, you know, the deal we came to and what they have going with this show, so I decided to stick with them.
Okay, good. What do you think about the rules sort of around the rules? Because, you know, in the first 2 regular fights or the first 2 season fights, you know, which are 3-round contests, athletes are rewarded 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. And additionally, fighters get 3 points for a first round finish, 2 bonus points for a second round finish, and 1 bonus point for a third round finish. So, you know, it kind of seems like they're really focusing on the finishes here. After everybody fights twice, the top 8 fighters, they advance to a single elimination playoff system. But here's the crazy thing. You could win 2 fights. If they go to decision, you get 6 points. You could win 1 fight in the first round and then lose the next one, and you also get 6 points. So how do you feel about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so how would they? I don't really know what they would do from that point. I think if you win 2 fights, you should automatically be in. But I honestly haven't really looked through the points that much, to be honest.
Do you think
we're flying out next? We're flying out next week for meeting. Yeah, we're flying out next week to meet with for meetings, and that's what I'm planning on going over. So I'll definitely look over it. I just haven't really. I do a lot of things last minute. I'll start tuning up on the rules. So yeah, I wasn't quite aware of the structure. Yeah. To me, it seems like if you win 2, you should automatically be in, but I don't really know.
I was trying to read you. I thought maybe you didn't care because you're like, dude, I'm going to smash everyone anyway, so it doesn't really matter about these points.
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm going to try to go out there and definitely try to go out there and submit someone, hopefully right away.
Yeah, because I was going to say, obviously, you've finished many fights in your career, but lately you have had a lot of wins come via decision. Do you think if they stick with this point system, you'll sort of modify your game plan to try and finish fights earlier, or how do you think this will affect you going into those first 2 fights?
I mean, I'm definitely going out there and try to finish someone early. So, yeah, you want to go and finish them early. But also, you got to win as well. So, you don't want to make
well, in this case, you might not need to
lose the fight.
In this case, you might need to win once in the first round, and then it doesn't matter what happens.
I guess so. Yeah, exactly. I guess all you got to do is get that one quick win.
What do you think about the fact that there's going to be no elbows? There's no. I mean, again, this is something that you might be finding out next week, and maybe this is new to you that I'm telling you now. But there's going to be no elbows, and in the past Bellator, they didn't have elbows in sort of the main season, and then in the finals they had elbows. Here, there's just none at all. Is that a big difference for you?
Not. There's no elbows in the finals either, or
no elbows in the finals either. No.
Yeah, I mean, pulling elbows out kind of makes sense because we're going to have we'll end up having 5 fights in like I think 5 or 6 months. So that's a lot of fights. So I definitely, even though I like elbows, I do understand pulling them out. I do think they should put them for the final fight, but it's, you know, I guess if you've done other ones there, you have to learn to adapt.
Because I guess if you cut someone open in the early rounds, and you know that kind of takes them out of the tournament, or especially in sort of like the finals.
I think that's what they're thinking. There's so many fights they're probably worried about, especially if they have 2 fights in one night. It's probably just trying to have less cuts. So it makes sense. I understand why. I mean, it kind of sucks, but it's I can see why they would do that.
So the quarterfinals are 2-round contests, while the semifinals are 3-round contests. What do you think about the quarters only being 2 rounds? How do you think that's going to sort of impact fights?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So, see, I haven't looked over the rules.
You don't need to go next week. You're going to be filled in like during this interview.
Yeah.
Save yourself a flight.
I'll let them know I don't have to go to Orlando now.
Yeah.
I'll send them an email right now. Not coming to Orlando. Yeah, but so what would happen if it was one apiece? They would do an overtime round, or?
Nope, there's no overtime rounds either. Well, here, Jake, wait till you hear this. Here's where it gets kind of tricky. So ties will not be allowed, nor will there be overtime rounds. And see, the PFL officials, they're currently working with the planned host commissions to ensure that the judges can determine a winner. Does that shake you a little bit?
Because have to pick someone if it's a draw.
They have to. I mean, imagine this. You know, one round is dominant for one guy, the other round is dominant for the other guy. I mean, how do you decide a winner there?
Yeah, that's tough. I guess probably whoever wins the second round. I mean, it's a shitty situation, but if you're the judge, if I was forced to make that call, I would give it to whoever won the second round more dominant.
Interesting, because it's a crazy situation.
It's not an ideal situation, but I think that's what most judges would probably do. You know, it's kind of like, well, that guy dominated the end of the fight, so that's kind of who you give it to.
Yeah, because it's crazy because I feel like MMA judging has been under scrutiny for, you know, ever since MMA was around, and you know, it's kind of crazy to think that, you know, any officials will get any commission to sort of perfect MMA judging, you know, all of a sudden because you got this tournament, right?
Yeah. So it's going to be so both the fights that night will be 2 rounds apiece, or just the first one?
Just the first one, and then the final will be 3 rounds.
Yeah, I think there might be a rule that you only can do 5 rounds in a night or something. I heard someone say. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that a while ago.
Yeah.
So it made it hard to do tournaments.
Yeah.
Like this might not be true what I'm saying, but I remember someone telling me one time that you can't do tournaments anymore because something about having 5 rounds of competition in a night. So that would make it, maybe they have no option but doing that.
Have you had a look at your weight class? There are some tough fighters. What do you think about the division?
Yeah, I have.
Are there any names that kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, what's his name? Khabib's brother. I don't know how to say his name. the Dagestani dude's tough. Rick Story's tough. The Zhao Zaffarini's tough. I train with him a little bit, but he's a good guy. Who else? Paul Bradley's tough. There's a bunch of good guys in there. You know, I feel like I could beat anyone there. I feel like I'm probably the best fighter there, but there's definitely some tough fights.
Considering that you've trained together, how would you feel if you guys had to fight each other? And would you prefer it sort of early or later in the finals?
I'd rather fight in the finals, you know, because it's like if you're training with someone you want to try to avoid them.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can separate us so we don't have to fight and last for both in the finals. Because it kind of sucks because he's coming into Renzo Gracie's training, so we're training with all the same coaches, same wrestling, same jiu-jitsu, same boxer. So it's kind of all the same coaches. It kind of have an awkward situation. We have to fight them.
I guess the big matchup a lot of people are talking about, and you mentioned his name just before, is Rick Story. How do you think a fight between you two goes? Because a lot of people are sort of talking about this as kind of the big fantasy matchup that may, I guess, happen at the finals. Maybe it happens a bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, Rick's tough too. I've trained with him a few times as well. You know, went up and trained with him for a few days, and he's a good fighter. You know, I think I'll do well with him, but he's not an easy guy.
When did you guys train together?
It was a couple of years ago. It was, went trained with him a couple of times. He stopped down in San Francisco before too, so we definitely sparred together a few times, done a little grappling. So some of those things, you know, it sucks when you train with the guys you got to fight, but sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah. This whole thing, you know, it's kind of like, I guess you can compare it almost to like a tennis grand slam. In some ways, it's almost like soccer or basketball. You know, it's a very traditional sports format. Does this kind of breathe new life into your career? I mean, I think you mentioned a little bit earlier that you're sort of coming towards the end of your career, but do you feel like you're maybe a little bit more excited about this than you have been compared to, say, past MMA fights in recent years?
Yeah, I think it's something new. The whole, you know, the season, the tournament, you know, you win this, it holds some prestige, you know, plus, you know, good payday. But it's kind of cool to win something like this where there's no, you know, politics behind it. You go out and win a legit, you know, season and tournament. So it makes it exciting to me.
And it's going to be on NBCSN. Do you think it sort of brings the sport to a different kind of fan? Because I know Casper mentioned the whole tennis and basketball perspective. It almost kind of puts MMA in a different kind of bracket for fans who haven't seen it before or haven't seen anything like this before. Do you think it kind of brings new fans to the game and gets sort of a different type of attention than a lot of other events?
I think it will a little bit. I mean, obviously it's going to keep the MMA fans, but I think it'll build some other fans as well. I think they have some, you know, pretty big marketing plans, and hopefully it catches. You know, you never really know what's going to catch or not, but it seems like they have big ambition for it. They're trying to do big things. You know, they're throwing some serious money around. I think it's you know, the $10 million in cash they're throwing out in prizes at least. I don't know if that's just the tournament, that's just the tournament, or if that's the season pay too. But it shows, you know, they're throwing some serious money around.
I was gonna say, in terms of MMA, I guess, Not so much development, but every now and then you have these milestones in MMA, and promoters doing sort of different things. It's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but there are definitely some very different aspects to it. Where do you think this sort of ranks in terms of like MMA milestones and I guess different things and moving the I guess industry forward to a certain degree?
It's hard to say where it ranks, but I think it does. It does add some new excitement with it. It's realistically, it's hard to compete with the UFC. The UFC has been the name for so long.
Sure.
But it's nice to throw a new angle. And I think it allows us people to see the same fighters fight a lot. Win the tournament format where there's no politics, so they'll see the same fighters and there's whoever the best fighter wins. So it just makes it well, not necessarily who's the best wins, but it's a fair format for everybody.
I like the fact that it's got the bracket system, where you get to see people sort of go through. And I like the fact that there's a lot of money on the line. I think that kind of draws people in and makes you want to watch to see, there's just so much on the line, especially in the finals. It's going to draw people in.
Exactly. It adds a little prestige, in the final fights, everyone's fighting for $1 million, not, 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever, And I mean, obviously some of the big fights guys are fighting for that kind of money, but a lot of people don't even realize that. I think a lot of times, I think sometimes we are making more money than people realize, and sometimes less. But it's like, the fact that people know for sure there's going to be at least 6 millionaires out there. It adds some excitement.
Yeah. Can I ask, in without getting sort of too into your financials or anything like that, but this $1 million prize, it's a big deal compared to sort of what you've made in the past and sort of overall in your career. How big of a deal is this for you to potentially earn that $1 million?
Yeah, I mean, I've made pretty good money. I've also, been smart with money and invested and stuff. So I'm certainly not broke, but I mean, $1 million is definitely nice. I'm already living a pretty comfortable life, but it definitely adds to and makes things a lot more comfortable. And not to mention, I get my fight paid for other fights as well. So it would be a good little bump in my life. Will
there be some new jet skis added to Jake Shield's life with this $1 million? Maybe a Ferrari?
Possibly. I'm not real fancy, so I already had a nice car once, so not getting a Ferrari. Luckily, I've already made a little money, so I don't need to go buy nice things. But it's definitely nice to have.
Well, let's talk about
traveling and that type of stuff.
Let's talk about the night of the finals. So there's going to be 6 champions crowned and one massive event at the end of the year in December. So that's just going to be unbelievable for fans. But if you had to predict some names that you think might be in this finals from the other divisions, are there any kind of fighters that you sort of saw their names when you were scrolling through the divisions that kind of stand out to you that might be in the finals of the other divisions?
Oh, man, I remember seeing a lot of tough guys in there. I'm trying to think of who. I remember looking through thinking I think there's a lot of good guys in there. My friend Ramsey's at 155. He's tough, but there was I remember looking at the division thinking that was pretty stacked. Can't remember who's all there now, but I think there's a lot of good guys there, a lot of good 45-pounders. None of the weights are really easy, so it's definitely exciting. Oh, yeah, Vinny's up at 205. There's a couple other good guys there. It's a lot of good guys. And there's some guys that are pretty tough, too, from places like Russia. And, some guys didn't know who they were, but you look at them, see they have really good records. There might be some guys that become big names here.
We also need to is it a congratulations or is it a historic day in MMA history? But I guess it's the anniversary over there in America of that big moment with you and Jason Miller and Strikeforce, the massive fight in the brawl.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, it's been some time since it's happened, but what do you think of when you look back at that time and also just the craziness around that moment?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I hadn't really thought about it in a while, but someone tagged me with a picture of that today, and I was like, oh, 8-year anniversary. And I'm like, wow, that's been 8 years. It's pretty crazy how fast that went. And that was a crazy night for me overall, because first that's the night I came and dominated Henderson when I was supposed to lose. I got dropped the first round a couple times. I came and did a amazing performance and dominated him. And then we had the fight capped off with a brawl. So it was like two huge moments all at once. That was a pretty massive night for me. And I guess it's looking back, I was like, wow, in disbelief that's been 8 years and how much has happened since then.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable moment in MMA history. And I guess it kind of segues well to what I was going to ask you in regards to one of the craziest moments that's happened in general in the UFC, which was this whole crazy Conor McGregor bus incident. I'm just wondering, I mean, all of us, all the MMA media, all the fighters, everyone was just blown away by what happened in that garage when he was threw the dolly through that bus window. What was your reaction to that when you saw that happening?
Yeah, I mean, me obviously someone that's been in brawls and been in a lot of some situations that I don't want to overjudge someone, but even I look back at that one, it's like, Well, first off, like we are fighters, so we do stupid stuff. It's easy for us to get heated up and fight. People don't realize, sometimes we fight other fighters, but this is what we do for a living. But even I think he took it too far there. When he took the dolly and smashed through the window, and it seemed like it was fairly unprovoked. I mean, I guess he did kind of punk his friend, so I can understand being pissed about that. But you think they could have met? He could have found him somewhere separate and like dealt with it completely different than how he did. He ended up pulling a couple people out of the fight. That's a pretty. Just seemed very unnecessary and not the coolest thing to do.
I remember back in the day, obviously you guys, Team Diaz and Team McGregor, had quite the big rivalry. Me and Casper remember seeing you guys walking around the hotel, and it was like all you guys had the black T-shirts on, and it was just a crew that no one would want to mess with. But you didn't really see Conor McGregor pull out a group of guys and confront you guys then. Do you think just the fact that it happened after the weight, after the media day with people cutting weight and just Khabib on the bus by himself and other fighters being on there trying to cut weight kind of made it a bit more of a difficult situation?
Yeah, because it's just not the way you do it. It's like, first off, Khabib wasn't confronting him right there. They didn't get it. It wasn't like a spur of the moment type of thing where they just got into it and you got a little too excited. It was like you went and attacked the bus with a group of 10, 15 people. And the other people on the bus, you're knocking a window out with a dolly. That's, I've thrown coffee, we've thrown bottles. We've definitely done some things we shouldn't have, not to excuse our actions, but it's more things that are caught up in the moment, and we weren't literally smashing out windows and stuff. So it's, he took it a level too far. I think maybe he's just been, felt a little untouchable with his fame, getting a little to his head. I think just hopefully it'll be a wake up call where he realizes that I took it a little too far and need to be a little more careful.
What do you think sort of is, you mentioned sort of punking the friend, obviously, Khabib and Artem had that whole situation, and it kind of makes me think of Nick Diaz jumping in there for you, during the Strikeforce brawl, he was the first one in there, obviously a loyal guy. When someone does something like that, what is, I guess, the appropriate course of action? If you're not going to throw a dolly through a window, if this was, say, roles reverse, if somebody, I guess, punk Nick Diaz and you were the guy who wanted to avenge them or protect Nick Diaz or whatever the case is, what's the appropriate action?
Yeah, well, first off, I think Nick Diaz would have punched him in his face. Rather,
I think so too. Yeah,
he would have, he would have got jumped, but he would have gone out swinging at least. It wouldn't have been punk. They might have jumped him and taken him down, but he would have gone out swinging. That's for sure. And then secondly, I think it's just, I don't know, not the way he approached it. Wait till you see him. He would have seen him somewhere. As Khabib said, you can hit me up, I'll go meet you. Khabib's not a guy that's scared. He'll go and fight him. It's just, but they even could have done it after the fight, backstage. It's still the wrong place to do it, but more appropriate than how he did it. At least wait till after the fight. Don't try to hurt the guy right before a big fight.
And before we wrap up, just quickly, we know you've trained, with GSP. GSP well. A lot of people talking about the fact that Conor McGregor and GSP might be fighting each other for the 165-pound title. How do you think a fight between them would go? Do you think Conor McGregor could handle someone the size of GSP with the wrestling that he's got?
Yeah, I think Conor's stand-up's really good. He'll have an edge there, but I think GSP's wrestling's too good. I think it's a bad matchup for Conor stylistically. I think GSP covers so much ground with that double he has, and he's got, good passing, good top pressure, so it's a tough fight for Conor. But Conor's not someone you ever count out, so it's not definitely wouldn't say it's a sure thing, but I would favor GSP in that matchup.
Well, who would you be more curious about, or which fight would you prefer to see, Conor Khabib or Conor GSP?
I would like to see, they're both great fights, but I'd like to see Conor GSP. I think GSP's, arguably the greatest of all time. To go in there, he's one of the legends of the sport, and Conor's the biggest name right now. I think that's a fight that would really be interesting.
And as we let you go, Jake, is there anyone that you'd like to see potentially for your good friend Nick Diaz? As we talk about it on this anniversary, Nick Diaz, it seems like he's going to be eligible to fight any day now. Do you think he'll return? And if so, who do you think makes sense for him? Some people are throwing out Michael Bisping.
I would love to see him. Oh, that could be good. That could be exciting, But I think ultimately Nick's better off at 170. He's been doing these fights at 85, but why not fight his weight? I know Woodley's been looking for a big money fight. Why not have him fight Woodley? I think it's a really exciting fight. It's a little unfair because it might bypass a few people, but it would be super exciting. It would bring the fans in, and I think stylistically Nick has a style that could beat him. He comes forwards, and unless Woodley can put him down with those early shots, Nick would wear him out and keep putting the pressure. And Woodley's not going to want to take him down because Nick's jiu-jitsu is a lot better.
And I guess the good thing about that is Woodley's been wanting these legend fights, these legacy fights, and these big money fights, and Nick's sort of all three of those, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the big money fight for him. It seems like Woodley's been kind of holding off trying to get the right fight. I don't know if he's like hurt or if he's just trying to, wait for a big money fight, but that's the money fight right there.
Well, Jake, we appreciate your time. Enjoy your trip up to Orlando. Sorry that we already covered a lot of the stuff that you're going to be covering in the meeting.
Yeah, I don't need to go now.
You don't need to. We've saved you a plane ride, but best of luck. Jake Shields, everybody, make sure to follow him on Instagram at Jake Shields. He may become the winner of the first $1 million prize in the PFL in his division. Very excited to see what happens there, Jake, and have a great week. Thank you so much for joining us here on Submission Radio.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest picked up his second UFC win this past weekend at UFC Glendale against Marvin Vettori, extending his winning streak to 13 straight in MMA. He now joins us on the show. The last stylebender, Israel Adesanya. Welcome back to Submission Radio. It's great to have you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
What a treat, dude. This feels very intimate. We feel like we're in bed with Israel Adesanya. What are you doing right now?
We had a shower just to prep for this. Oh well, I'm about to go out anyway, have some dinner, but yeah, fresh out the shower, so you guys caught me at a good time.
Yeah, clearly. What's the dinner plans? Are you going to hit up a Philly cheesesteak in Glendale?
Nah, we're in New Jersey, so don't know yet. But the boys, I think Dan and them are getting some light work done now, a little sweat up. So after they're done, we'll go have dinner. So I don't know. We'll see what's up.
We saw a photo of you in Philly with the famous Rocky statue on Twitter, and you said you still haven't watched the movie. Could that be true?
That's facts.
Wow.
I tried about 3 years ago, but I think for the time, like my coach said, it's a movie that inspired a generation. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that was in the 80s, I think. But for me, it doesn't. I tried. It doesn't hold up like the way I would have expected it. So maybe I just gotta get stoned and watch it. And
Do you think you'll ever try again? Is that sort of on the cards? Especially now, you're looking very comfortable. I feel like after dinner, this could be the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, not today, no. Not tonight.
I'd love it if he was watching it as he was speaking to us, just giving it another go. Maybe Submission Radio will make it a bit easier to get through this. Just quickly, Casper mentioned the Philly cheesesteak. I saw you did have one when you were over there. Give us the lowdown. What do you give it out of 10? Did it live up to your expectations?
Give it an 8. I had a classic. There was many different flavors, but I just, you know what? I'll have a classic, just a regular cheesesteak, and I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It was beautiful.
That's pretty good. 8. It's high.
Yeah, the look like it was gonna be crusty, but you can see on my athlete page, I shared a little day out in Philly, and when I bit into that bread, my face changed. It was so soft, just really, really soft. I was surprised, and yeah, it was beautiful. I might have another one eventually, maybe not in Philly, but out here in New Jersey.
Wow, I have dreams about what that bread would taste like. I hope to one day try some for myself. Just quickly, before we talk about this fight, we noticed the weigh-ins, the shirt didn't quite rip, didn't quite go full Hulk Hogan. What happened? That would have been disappointing for you, right?
That's all good. Yeah, shit like that happens, But funny thing enough, everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. Because going up to even about to weigh in, you still kind of get the little butterflies and jitters and whatnot. And then that happened, and it was just worst case scenario. And in that moment, boom, instantly, I didn't give a fuck. And it was just mate. That's why I said, you look at my Instagram story, I said, I'm so calm, it scares me sometimes. Because backstage, I was getting nerves, but I was just pushing them away slowly with my breathing and everything. But I put it all down to that moment, because that moment happened, and it's one of those things where, you dream and you're, like a nightmare, you wake up in your underwear or something in front of everyone.
Yeah.
So that moment happened, I was just I just didn't give a fuck. And yeah, I'm glad I'm able to kind of be composed in those kind of situations, because a lot of men would have panicked, and then same thing happened, and let that. For me, it was the opposite. That moment just made me go, I don't give a fuck. It was beautiful.
I guess because you lived out your nightmare and you realized it wasn't so bad, so you're like, whatever. But you mentioned the butterflies. Are you nervous? I'm always fascinated about what's going through a fighter's mind. What are you sort of nervous about? What are the butterflies down to?
The butterflies, how do I put it? Okay, so when I was a kid, when I would get bullied, and my leg would start shaking. And even, one time, look at him, he's shaking. But, I used to think, man, I'm scared, oh, fuck. And I was scared. But as an adult now, what it means is it's just adrenaline running through your body, and you can feel it. Like I'm in tune with my body now, so I know I can feel it, and it's just your body getting ready for war, for battle, getting ready to fight or flight or freeze. You know, some guys freeze. That's the third F they don't tell you about. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And yeah, when I'm in fight mode or flight mode, you know, same thing. The adrenaline just runs through, so you can feel it in your stomach, the butterflies. You feel your legs, you know, kind of shaking a little bit. And there's other things, but it's your body getting ready for battle. That's what it is. It's getting ready to do something crazy.
I can't believe that Israel Adesanya actually got bullied in his younger years. That must be a pretty crazy situation when they see what you're doing now. Have you been able to see any of these dudes from back in the day? Have you run into any one of them? And if you have, what kind of response did they have? I imagine they're your biggest fans now.
Yeah, they tell people we're friends. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? like I'll tell kids, no matter what, even if like you're in the shit right now and you feel like you're getting bullied at school and there's no way out, there's always a way out. And I'll tell you one thing, it's okay. Don't peak in high school. Don't peak in college. That's all. Like, cause trust me, I see some of these guys now and I'm like, the fuck? Like, I used to be scared of you. Like some of them can't fathom. Like they just, like some guys from First 15 rugby team in my school they just fat with 4 kids to 3 different baby mamas now, still living in the same town. And yeah, you know, it's weird. Kids are stupid, and kids are just like a bunch of chimps filled with testosterone at that age. So they don't know how to channel it. And that's where, you know, bullying is just part of nature. But yeah, it's okay. It's just don't peak in high school. That's my advice. And yeah, a lot of them see me now. I just keep them on my Facebook. I let them, because they're not really friends, but I keep them on there so they can see what I'm doing now. I'm petty like that.
That's very backhanded. You're very subtle like that. All right, we're going to talk about this big fight. Obviously, you got the win against Marvin Vettori. Congratulations. But you were pretty hard on yourself, and you put out on Twitter, you know, you did the GSP voice, you did the robot, the alien emoji, nice touches, basically saying that you weren't impressed. Basically, that you weren't impressed with your performance. Now that it's been a little while, how do you feel back? How do you feel about it? And have you had a chance to watch the fight back now?
Yeah, I watched it a bunch of times. At first, I gave myself like if I was being generous, a 4, but probably a 3. But now watching the fight back, I'll give it a 5.5 or a 6.
So you feel better about it?
Yeah, definitely. It's hindsight. Yeah, it's foresight or hindsight, both. Because I knew later on when I watch it, I'll feel better about it. So I was kind of expecting. This is always what happens when I watch my fights that I'm not proud of anyway. But yeah, and Luke Thomas was saying something about like I think you're being hard on yourself, and it's people being hard on you because they have such high expectations. And I said I don't give a fuck about other people's expectation of me. All I give a fuck about is my expectation of myself. So yeah, I have high standards, and I felt like I didn't really. I could have put him away. I was fresh. I told Eugene after the fight, I've got 2 more rounds in me. And we only based our camp on a 3-round fight. So wait till 5-round fights. Like, I can't wait. I was fresh, you know? So, yeah, if the fight, you know, woulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda, whatever. If the fight had gone another round, 2, he definitely would have gassed out and I would have finished him. But, yeah, he's a tough guy. Hats off to him. His granite chin held up, as he said. But, yeah, I was already breaking him down. I broke down his leg. I was starting to go for the body before the fight ended, and that 3rd round I just started thinking too much. But yeah, I would have got back into the flow. First 2 rounds I flowed, and by the 3rd round I was thinking too much. So it is what it is. I just have to, you know, like win and learn. They say win or learn, but this one I win and learn.
I know you mentioned that, you know, you don't really care about critics, but I guess this is the first time in the MMA world, because I know in the kickboxing world you were up the top for quite some time, but in the MMA world, this is the first time where you've had to deal with the MMA community being a bit negative about you after your performance. Because after Perth, everybody absolutely loved you. Here, there were a couple of critics, people in the community saying that, you know, some people saying that they thought you were overrated, other people saying that you're not as good as other people think. Was that difficult for you to sort of deal with? And how do you block that out, I suppose, for the first time in your MMA career? Because I suppose there'd be things all over the internet that you'd have to be stopping yourself from sort of reading.
No, this is it. Like, when I tell you guys, you know, I mean, after UFC 221, I told you guys I've been prepping for this for years.
Yeah.
I mean that. I prepped for every single aspect, including this. And how I prepped for this was just, how I say, little doses like of venom. little doses of hate, you know, every once in a while over the last few years. And even after the Glory fight, all that shit, you get big doses as well. And just how you deal with it, little doses. So now when I go bit after this fight by the critics and they try to inject me with their venom, I'm immune to it. Like, do I look bothered? Nothing, you know? And the Italians are being salty, and I'm like, I love Italy. You know, they're saying I was being racist because I said something about spaghetti. Who doesn't fucking love spaghetti? And he tried to claim if he had said something about me. I'm like, everyone loves fried chicken and watermelon. Fuck you mean? I was that racist. These bitches on the internet. Like, I love spaghetti. I love lasagna. I love Italian pussy. I mean, it's fair game. It's all fair in love and war. So they can cry about all they want, but hey, a win's a win, and I stayed winning.
What did you think about him saying that he was essentially going to slap you if he saw you again? Because he was very fired up, and he was talking about how, you know, these are things that he... Sorry?
He had 15 minutes. I said, I wish a nigga would. He had 15 minutes to do what? To try and slap me. Bitch, he couldn't do shit to me. Even when people are like, oh, I think you lost that fight. I love his acting. He deserves an Oscar for that after the, you know, when I got announced the winner, the way he was like, and just stormed out the cage, his acting. Oh, bravo. His acting chops were on. He might have to pick up. I don't know how to. I mean, for me, you see me, I'm objective and I'm honest about my assessment of my performance, and I know what I have to do to get better. If you have that kind of attitude when you lost a fight, and you want to keep it in your head like, oh, I won that fight, and you have all these yes men feeding you that shit that, oh, you won that, bro. I mean, he's not gonna get far. He's not gonna. I said after the fight, I might see you at the top, but with this kind of attitude, fuck no, he's gonna get cut. He's gonna get dropped soon.
I found that interesting, actually, that you did say, I'll see you again. I was wondering what you meant by that, because, you know, if you're the UFC matchmakers, you kind of look at this, a guy like yourself, you think, all right, Israel beat Marvin, move on to the next one. I was wondering why you said you'd see him again if you expected maybe a rematch. I'm just wondering, sort of, on him sort of saying that he was going to slap you. Did you see him later that night afterwards?
Oh, fuck no. If he saw me, he could have... I wish someone would. I mean, what's he going to do? Oh, he couldn't even walk. I beat the fuck out of his front leg. He couldn't even walk properly. So I'm healing. My eye was fat. It's like 70% better now. You wait. And yes, black guys can get black eyes. But yeah, I mean, he's gonna slap me. This is keyboard warrior shit. I should have expected that from him because he's a fuck boy. You know, he's relishing in my downfall at the hand of someone else, and he's the kind of person. His character spoke for itself during the fight, before the fight, and after the fight. So. Yeah, he's a fuckboy for real. And, you know, I really wanted to knock him out, and that was the thing. I wanted to knock him out. My coach said just let it happen. You know, in the third round, he was ready to go, but I was thinking too much. I didn't let it happen. So, yeah, if he saw me, I bet you, I'll put money on it. He wouldn't do shit. He wouldn't slap me. He's just trying to, he's Italy's guy, so he has to try and be the hero for the people, so he has to try and save face. So he's got to talk all this shit online. You had a chance to. I was at the hotel after the fight. I was around. Why didn't he? So, yeah, fuck him.
Well, let's move on because in your pre-fight interview, you mentioned that you had another opponent in mind. Apparently, it seemed like something happened backstage that kind of, or during the lead up to the fight that kind of inspired you to potentially fight this person next. Can you now open up, now that you've fought Vettori and won, what exactly you meant in that pre-fight interview?
I said it in the post-fight scrum that it was Brad, and they said he called me out or something. And I was like, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't understand where they got that from. Nothing happened, really. I'm like Goku in a way.
Yeah.
Excuse the comparison, but like where I want to fight the tough guys, the guys that are coming up, the young tough guys, you know, the old dogs as well who have got the experience, the skills. I want to fight the best, you know, and during breakfast one morning, I just said what's up because his trainer's Ray Sefo. So I said what's up to him. And I said what's up to Brad as well. And I shook his hand, and nothing. There was no ill will, nothing. But when we shook each other's hands, it was kind of like a mutual respect of, you know, you're in my weight class. You know, I'm gonna see you. It's just it's energy. You feel it, and it wasn't anything bad, nothing negative. I was like, okay, then I want to fight this guy, and that was it. And after the fight, it kind of got I think it's been offered to us. I'm not sure. I don't know if I can speak on it, but yeah, if that goes down, then that'll be 3 for 3, where I kind of subconsciously pick my opponents before my fights in the UFC. So, yeah, it's never anything bad, like negative, like, oh, it was an altercation or whatnot, or me throwing a trolley at a bus or some shit. But it was just, I was fight. And he had a knockout as well, so good on him. He had a nice finish that night. I think his first finish in a long time. And he's been in the UFC in a long time. So, yeah, he's not a really big name, but he's a bit of a name. I think he's in top 15 as well. So, yeah, he's got a ranking. Give me him, and let me, And also, I was saying his trainer Ray Sefo, he's a legend, living legend.
Oh yeah.
And he's a guy that came up from under my trainer's trainer. We're from the same school, the lineage of striking. So, yeah, he can put his student against, Eugene putting me up against, it's like coach versus coach, student versus student. And we'll see who the superior striker is. Oh, no, so fuck that. Superior fighter is. This is MMA. But if he wants to go toe-to-toe, I welcome him to toe. I wish a nigga would. I wish a nigga would.
I smell a new T-shirt.
How do you think
You get 5% commission then. 5%.
Yes.
Nah, 3. I'm giving you 3%.
Come on. You can't do that. You can't go down a percentage. At least wait till the interview's over and do it.
Hey, we did marketing for the Good Cunt T-shirt. Remember that? That was a lot of retweets, all right? There's negotiating.
There were no percentages there.
Make it 7%. That's my final offer. 7% commission.
We'll take it.
We like it. Just quickly, if that fight did go down with you and Brad, how do you think that would play out?
Easier than this fight. Much easier than this fight. Not trying to hype the fight. Not trying to fucking be this guy that talks shit just for fucking talking shit's sake. I'm just saying it'll be way easier than this fight because I give Vettori credit. His striking is ugly. It's just weird. It's ugly. So that's his advantage as well. His chin, his toughness, and his advantage is weird ugliness. And the fucking good thing about me, one thing I really enjoyed about myself was that I can say I did good, was able to read him and feel him. Whenever he threw something weird that I wasn't used to seeing from his stance, I was able to just adapt on a split second, on a drop of a dime, And you can see it in that fight. I was playing, and I think that's why one of the judges might have given it to him because they see all these shots missing, but they don't see it. They think they're hitting sometimes, and they just not even touching, sliding past me this close. I'm playing with fire. I'm playing in the fucking pocket sometimes. And these guys think, oh, he's getting the better of those exchanges. They don't really see what's happening. You should see me. I've put my face up. Have you seen his face after the fight? He has to wear stunner shades. He has to try and hide his face because he doesn't want to know the kind of fucking damage I put on him. So, yeah, this next fight with Brad, if it happens, then I see it going easier because I've seen that shit before many times, thousands, hundreds of thousands of times. Like, I've seen that kind of stuff. So he's a tough guy, but yeah, it'll be easier than this fight, guarantee you.
There you go. Just quickly, we'll let you go in a moment, Israel. I really appreciate your time. You also tweeted out to Derek Brunson, "Say my name, cunt." Where it almost felt like you were angling for a fight with him. Was that the case, or are you sort of setting things up in the future?
I don't think they're gonna give me him because he won't fucking take this fight because of his ranking. But these motherfuckers, I told you.
Did you want Brunson though? Like if they offered you Brunson right now, would you have taken it?
First round. If I ever fight Brunson, not emotionally speaking, but if I ever fight him, first round, he slept easily. He comes at me with that fucking stupid wavy flailing spaghetti arm, chin up style. Slept. Face down, ass up, 100%. Wow. I'll put money on it. But the reason I said that about him is because even in the countdown, I say, these guys, they treat me like the Dark Lord. He who shall not be named. They don't want to say my name. I'm telling them, if they want to beat me yesterday because I get better every fucking time I get in there, And he's one of those guys who was tweeting some bullshit like, I spy a middleweight talking the 10 to 10. And I'm like, he's talking about me. And I'm like, oh, ground game's from trash. How's my ground game trash? What the fuck did he do to me on the ground? I stuffed how much takedowns? I didn't get taken down till twice in the third round, I think, and also a failed attempt. And I had like a fucking sick off my failed lateral drop attempt. I had a sick sweep that we've been drilling. I went for the ankle and he based out that way. I swept him the other way. I just didn't quite finish it. I took my foot off the hip too quick before I got up, so he got my back. And I was about to roll for a knee bar as well, but I thought about it. I should just done it when I felt it. I thought about it, and I was like, nah. Bro, I mean, ground games and trash. These guys are just talking shit. I'm giving you honesty. I'm speaking objectively. I'm letting you know what's up. And these guys are just like trying to hype bullshit. You know, they are ground games from trash. Come see me. You said I should win and come see you. I'm out here. You come see me now. I'm the A side in this. He's a fuckboy. And he never said my name. And they're too scared to say my name because I'm the Dark Lord. So I wish a nigga would say my fucking name. What I said.
So as we wrap up, you mentioned Brad. What time frame are you thinking, though? I mean, you mentioned to us you want to keep active throughout the year. How soon do you think we could see you back in there?
Hey, after the fight, I was only limping because of my offense because I beat the fuck out of Vettori's legs. And I think by the next day I was kind of hopping around, and now I can run. I'm like Wolverine. This eye was like swollen, not shut, but it was swollen about 3 days ago, and now I'm out here. It's just a little shade darker. I'm like Wolverine or Deadpool. I heal quick, you know? So I can go tomorrow. This weekend, if they need me, I can step in. And that's not a lie. That's not me talking shit. Wow. Some middleweight pull out, and then Dana says, yo, okay, I'm going to have to make them triple the money because of the notice. But if they say I should jump in this weekend, on my fucking life, I will jump in. So I'm ready.
Well, there you go, guys. I mean, the UFC are going to love your company, man, but I like the negotiating as well. You know, you're going to step in, but you're going to make it worth your while as well. And by the way, I think if you're going to be Wolverine or Deadpool, you got to be Deadpool, right? I mean, you got the tattoo already on Deadpool on you, so it's got to be Deadpool. Guys, don't forget to follow Israel on Twitter and Instagram at Stylebender. A very, very, very strong Twitter and Instagram game. A lot of fun stuff there. As we let you go, Israel, any fun...
If you're easily triggered, don't follow me. If you're easily triggered, don't follow me. Because I'm a trigger everyone. I keep pulling the trigger.
Any final words? As you're laying in bed, chilling, relaxing, readying for dinner, any final words for any of the fans in Australia or the US? Or maybe people that might see you at dinner in a matter of minutes?
Worldwide, just be a good cunt. I keep saying, like, it's weird. I'm not trying to be a fucking preacher now, but like, just try it. If you want to be a cunt, catch yourself. And I catch myself doing it. If I'm about to yell at someone in traffic, I'll catch myself and I'm like, breathe, don't, and just do the opposite of the cunty thing you were about to do. And you'll realize being nice feels good. It honestly feels good. Rose said it after she won the belt. And I was like, yes, girl, get it. Like, being nice feels good. If you fucking put it out there, it'll come back to you. I swear to God.
I feel like if more preachers started and ended sermons with be a good cunt, I might be a little bit more religious. So appreciate the time, man. Appreciate you letting us into your bed, man. Have a great dinner. Thank you so much, Israel.
Thank you, Israel.
Wow. All good, bro. See you guys.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys, our next guest needs very little introduction. He has become like the heart and soul of Submission Radio. Our brother from Ireland who stays up all night long and waits for us to call him by the phone. A little bit like the Neo of MMA. He won't change his answering machine, even though sometimes he's all alone. But we join him back here today. Sheehan, welcome back to Submission Radio. Of course, you know his great work. I must also add, you know his great work from Severe MMA, one of the best podcasts out there. He does great work, great articles, and of course, the useless fact of the day. Great to have you back on the program, Sean. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me back. I need a hand sign out on video like Mario Yamazaki, or I need to go like this, something. Yeah, I badly need one in. But thanks.
Don't do the love heart, otherwise you'll be banned from the show.
What have you narrowed it down to? Do you have anything? Because the hand signs are a bit tough. We also Luke Rockhold really struggled with this. Anytime the UFC camera cuts to him, he does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we love Luke Rockhold. Actually, that's another thing about Luke Rockhold. So he comes on the show quite a bit. I feel like I should say this. He comes on the show quite a bit, and he gets a lot of hate from people that listen to the program because he's kind of like a weird, misunderstood guy. And while we bring him up, I just want to say he's actually like a really good dude behind the scenes, and he's just been one of the nicest guys for us to text, and like he'll come on. But the thing is, socially, when he speaks, he's just awkward and he comes up really strange, which is why the hand stuff doesn't work. But anyway, back to you, Sean.
He's very nice. I'll just add to that. He's very nice, and he's very personable as well. The kind of guy who like remember your name, and like I remember when we first interviewed him at UFC Fight Night 55 Media Day, and we like fucked up the intro. We were like absolutely terrible. We had microphone. We were passing it back and forth, and he was kind of like really nice. Kind of like took us under his wing almost, gave us pats on the back and stuff like that. So he's a very, very nice guy, and I think a lot of the hatred he gets is a little bit unfair. But yeah.
And I wore a blue shirt, Sean, and I had sweat patches underneath, and people made memes on Sherdog over it. I had to stay in the shower and cry all night because I was too manly to cry in bed. But anyway, let's narrow it down. What hand signals have you narrowed? Do you have anything?
I think I'll just go with that. Just up to the microphone like that, or up to the camera like that.
I like it.
But Luke Rockhold as well. Luke Rockhold is too beautiful to have a personality. Like he actually is. Why would that man need a personality? He's just the most beautiful man in the world.
He's very stunning.
He is, in fairness. Like I'm being honest, and just being honest. So.
Do we need to really do a breakdown, or should we just discuss how beautiful Luke Rockhold is for this team? Because the guy has baby blue eyes like Frank Sinatra. Can I say that on air? Is that all right? But
no, can't take it back.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. This one time we were in an elevator in Sydney, and Luke Rockhold was there for something, or for the fight, I think for Bisping. Or I think it might have been something. No, I think it was the Bisping fight. And I'm like, what are you doing after this, Luke? Like, you should. And I was like, try to be cool. And I'm like, you should catch the ferry and have a look at the Harbour Bridge, dude. Like, it's real cool. And he's like, actually, I think he said something like, actually, I think they like planned like a private charter and like a speedboat around the thing. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, man. No, that sounds even better, Hey, meanwhile, me and Casper go and like sit at the Starbucks trying to get free internet to upload an interview with Anthony Parash or some other guy on the card. But anyway, let's talk about UFC Glendale, because UFC Glendale for me was a really, really fun experience. Obviously a free card, and whenever it's a free card, we can stay at home, put the coffee on, maybe have an early breakfast. For you, Sean, it was one of the rare cards that didn't have too many fights on the main card, so you were going to go to sleep before, the sun hits the streets of Ireland there. And the fights there were really exciting. A lot of great free fights for people to watch, and some big question marks. So the first question mark I want to go to, and I want to get your thoughts on this first, Sean, is Israel Adesanya and his performance. Because Israel, he's on the show this week. He's obviously a rising star. He's about 28 years old. He's got a great personality. But I think going into this fight, a lot of people expected fireworks. They thought it was going to be an early finish. And I felt like a lot of the MMA community was disappointed when they saw the way that this fight played out.
Is he still on Team Sheehan, Sean?
He's still on Team Sheehan. Did you hear about Team Sheehan? You did have 11 members, but he's still on Team Sheehan at the moment anyway.
I was impressed with Team Sheehan quickly. Who's on there?
I can't remember.
Francis, Francis, Stephen
let me
Thompson.
think. Okay. Francis Ngannou, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Habib Nurmagomedov, Israel Adesanya. Let me think now. Mirsad Bektic. Oh God, I can't. I don't know. I'll tweet it out.
It's becoming like the NWO in like 2000. Too many members to narrow this thing down.
There's 11. I'll pull him up on my phone there later on. But yeah, he's on it anyway. I was impressed with his performance, and I think people maybe expecting a little bit too much too quickly. What's this? His second UFC fight, and he went in against a guy like Marvin Vettori, who's a good, tough fighter. Not easy to knock that man out. Like he's taken a lot of big shots before in the UFC and kept going. Like he won the 2 rounds very well, and when he got to the ground in the 3rd round, okay, he didn't look great on the ground, but he didn't get submitted, didn't get utterly dominated, get smashed up, like Habib smashing someone up or anything. But he looked, it was good and bad, because the first 2 rounds good. His takedown defense looked very good in the first 2 rounds. The way, at times you think he's going to get taken down. There's a big body lock. He gets into that position, and he's kind of on wobbly legs a little bit, but he manages to stay up, and that's something very encouraging. It reminds me a little bit of Jose Aldo back in the day. No, I'm not, he's not obviously as good as Jose Aldo yet. He's one of the best takedown defenses of all time in the UFC. But for the first 2 rounds, he was defending that way, getting his balance, doing very well, and obviously on the feet, he's unmatched. In the 3rd round, then he obviously got taken down, and there was struggle there. But I have no problem seeing that, seeing him going through a bit of struggle. Like if he'd won that fight 3 rounds to 0, or maybe got a knockout, maybe it wouldn't have helped him as much. Maybe he'll go back now, reevaluate, work harder on the wrestling and get better again. Like he said it straight away afterwards in the interview. that it wasn't his best performance, and he said it afterwards in press as well. And I'm sure he'll say it to you guys when you're speaking to him. So I have no problem. I'm still very impressed with him on the feet. Very good fighter, and for someone, second fight in the UFC, who all knockouts I believe outside the UFC, wasn't it? So he doesn't have that much in-cage experience. No harm to get 15 minutes there at a high level, and the expectancy level should rise as you go. He's a huge prospect, but he's not there yet. People in MMA kind of tend to forget that. They tend to think everyone should be John Jones or Demetrius Johnson in their 10th fight. They're not going to be that. So Israel Adesanya is on his way, but he's definitely not there yet.
What, in terms of what's next for him, is this kind of a situation where we learn about the UFC and if they've learned from their past mistakes? Because typically they love to take these prospects and really thrust them, in the deep end of divisions very quickly. And with Israel, I think the lesson here is take it slow. A guy like Marvin, you outlined very well why he is a really, really stiff test. But, Marvin is also not necessarily an elite wrestler. He was able to take Israel down, and there's not really any point of rushing him against some of these better wrestlers, knowing what we know about him from this fight, which is his takedown defense. It is pretty good. There was a lot of shots, like you mentioned, that were very, very deep, and he was able to fend them off. But, it's not impeccable just yet. Maybe take it slow with Israel Adesanya. And are there any names that maybe stand out to you on the middleweight roster that you think would be a good matchup for his next outing and that small little incremental step up in competition?
Well, I just want to jump in here, Sean, and say that we all saw that he was calling out Derek Brunson on Twitter. And I mean, that's a situation where it's almost a guy where you're like, whoa, like, this is a tough test right here that you're calling out, Israel. This is a tough time that you're calling out for him. But at the same time, he's calling for these names. And it's an interesting situation because I agree with you, Casper. I think he's in a situation where, you don't want to rush him too quickly. You want to build him up. You want to give him time to get used to being in that cage. But at the same time, if the guy's calling out big names and these big names start biting, I didn't see Derek Brunson respond. But if these big names start biting, the UFC might not have a choice but to put something together. I know, Sean.
Yeah, if you... I don't mind too much to giving him a bit of a pro wrestling feed. Maybe feed him to someone, like a Vitor Belfort or someone like that. But
Goldberg streak.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't like to see him. I wouldn't like to see him fighting someone like Brunson now. He could beat Brunson. He has the strike and he has the pedigree to do it. But that's a tough fight for him. Brunson has good wrestling and stuff as well. He hits hard, can catch him with a big shot. As you said, take it slow. Jake Matthews. I'm a big fan of Jake Matthews as well. They did a similar thing with him. Who did they put him in against? They put him in against someone really good anyway, and he
James
ended up
Vick,
losing.
and he got choked out.
Exactly. Yeah, and is there any need to do that? To Israel Adesanya, not really. But the one problem is that middleweight division, and once you go from middleweight up, those divisions are very light, and there isn't how many people are in the middleweight division? Probably 40 in the UFC now. So there isn't much more he can do in kind of that lower level before he's getting into the top 15. Maybe one more win and he's going to do it then. But hopefully the UFC can do that. And I know with Australia as well. I know is there an Australian event coming up? I don't think there is, but there'll probably be one soon enough. And
probably November. You can guess that.
Get him a fight before that and get him one in Australia. That's an easy enough fight to set him up to win, on home, on his home patch, and then maybe give him a bigger fight to start the next year or this time next year maybe. But I definitely agree. No need to rush him.
And it's interesting because it's a situation where, he wants to fight really, really frequently. But I want to look at this fight just quickly, Sean and Casper, from Vettori's perspective. I mean, he went in there, he was hard-nosed. Israel outstruck him, but he did have some opportunities later on in the fight that he missed out on. Do you think it's a situation where he watches the fight back and goes, man, I really wish I capitalized on some of those positions on the ground and didn't just let him slip away from me?
Not really. I think he did as much as he could have. Obviously, in the third round, when you're 2 rounds down, clearly 2 rounds down, you should be going for the finish. And I think he was trying his hardest, but as Adesanya's not, he's no joke. People might think he's a joke because he didn't do that well, but he did end up getting up at one stage. And Vettori isn't the greatest fighter in the world either. Let's be honest about it. And I think afterwards he was trying to say that he won the first round as well. So maybe he did think it was 1-1 going into the third, even though it clearly wasn't. So, you know, this, as you get to the very elite of the elite as well, you know, you get the, you know, the kind of the brain power or the ability, you know, the fight IQ when you get to that third round to know you need to finish something like that. And, you know, Vettori just isn't one of those top fighters at the moment. He's a very good fighter, very tough fighter, but I think Adesanya is a better fighter than him and has the ability to maybe make that step up, where as Vettori, I don't think he really does, and that's kind of what set guys apart. You know, someone who maybe does have the ability to step up, maybe would have put the foot on the petrol and got the finish. But yeah, I don't think Vettori's in that class.
Just quickly looking up the card, there's a couple of reasons to talk about this fight. Alex Oliveira, before we talk about Condit, what did you think of Alex Oliveira's win over Carlos Condit? Because I feel like a lot of people are sort of focusing on Condit. What's next? Is he going to retire? But this is actually a really, really good win for Alex Oliveira, a guy who's quietly building steam in the division. You know, very well-rounded guy. You know, he beat Tim Means. Now he beats Carlos Condit. And I guess, do you feel like the UFC has sort of taken the path with Carlos Condit where they're feeding him to young guys and trying to use him as you know, I guess there's two real paths they can do. They can do what they originally did with Matt Brown, give him a sort of legend fight, you know, just a fun fight for the sake of it, or they can give him to guys like Alex Oliveira. Obviously, it was a late notice replacement, but I kind of feel like they capitalized on that and sort of did that for a reason.
Yeah, Alex Oliveira seems to be the type of guy who is, you know, he's not a young guy, not a young prospect, but he's not an old veteran either, like a Condit or like a Matt Brown. And, you know, he's won a lot of his fights recently. So I don't think they did it on purpose. I just think they needed someone to fill in on short notice. And obviously he used to be lightweight and stuff, so could probably make weight easy enough. I think he's a very good fighter. I'm a big fan of his. Like, there's a lot to be said for being well-rounded in MMA, and he is well-rounded. Very good clinch, good on the ground, as we saw, very good submissions, not easy to submit Carlos Condit, good striking as well. You know, he has a bit of everything. He's not the best fighter in the world. I don't think he'll be the welterweight champion or anything anytime soon, but he can take scalps, you know, and he obviously took a big one against Carlos Condit, who didn't actually look bad. I thought he looked pretty good. He just doesn't seem to have that killer instinct on the feet anymore. He
was pretty game. I was going to say, do you think Alex hurt him with those up kicks? Because it looks like before he locked in that the guillotine, and it didn't really, I don't know, a lot of people weren't really talking much about it, but it looked like those up kicks really were what initiated that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. When we did the podcast on Sunday, like morning, so I was just up after like watching the fights after staying up all night, and I didn't have a chance to go back to watch it, but I went back and watched it afterwards when I was doing another bit of analysis on it, talking about it on another one, and definitely that's kind of something you'd miss as well, I think, at the start until you go back and watch it, unless you were looking at it very closely, you know, tweeting and talking shite on Twitter and stuff. But yeah, he definitely did, yeah, and that has happened to him before as well. It happened to him in the Damian Maia fight, didn't it? Remember, he said that he had been hurt. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I think it was maybe a bit of ground and pound or something that he was hurt with on the ground before he got submitted against Damian Maia. So maybe there is a thing about his chin not being the same as what it was. You know, that Robbie Lawler fight was huge. He's taken a lot of damage down through the years, and I'm sure I'm not sure, but I presume he's sparring hard and stuff, trying to prepare for these fights. And he looked good. He looked fine. His takedown defense is what it is. It's always the same. It's not good. And against someone like Oliveira, who can put you up against the fence and take you down, that was always going to happen. I think a lot of people, including myself, predicted the exact way that kind of fight would go. Maybe not the submission, but I think the clinch and the takedown was always going to happen. And when you get to that position, maybe if you're not going to get back up to the top and be a champion again, you know, I think I think he could fight on. Definitely, he can definitely win fights, but he's fought enough now, and you know, is there a need for him to fight anymore? Like, I'm thinking how he might be thinking now. So, you know, it's a big decision here to make for Carlos Condit.
Yeah, and he put out sort of a press release, or not press release, but he put out a statement on social media talking about how he doesn't really know what's next for him, and of course he kind of plugged his, you know, coffee towards the end, and I kind of get the sense that that's sort of telling, and that's what I thought about even before he really put that out, is that Carlos Condit's kind of got one foot out the door, and he's had 1 foot out of the door for a long time. Maybe he's got, you know, 1.5 feet out the door. He's focusing on other things, other endeavors. Like, really, you know, he's running a business, and I feel like when guys sort of have one thing in their lives, like Carlos Condit for a long time, I guess he just had fighting, and that was his only drive. That's all he focused on, and that's one of the reasons why he was so good. You know, a combination between, you know, age catching up to him, the wars catching up to him, and now maybe a little bit, don't want to say distracted, but, you know, his mind is sort of in different places. I think it's a lot easier to move away from MMA when you have other things to sort of keep you occupied. And, you know, I feel almost like, I know me personally, I kind of feel like I'm living in the past when it comes to Carlos Condit, because there was that moment where he fought GSP, and he was somewhat close for a brief moment in that fight to shocking the world, almost beat GSP when he landed that kick. And then, of course, there was a Robbie Lawler fight, which I believe that he won. And I kind of feel like I'm finding it hard to detach myself from that Carlos Condit. But the truth of the matter is, that was a long, long, long time ago. And that Carlos Condit just doesn't seem to be there anymore. You know, he's lost 3 fights in a row. 2 of them pretty, I wouldn't say brutal, but very, very dominant losses. And I guess he has to ask himself, like you mentioned, Sean, what is he fighting for? Because he's ranked 12th right now. He's losing to guys that are stepping up on short notice. It's very, very hard, for me at least, to imagine him ever being a world champion. And if you're not going to fight to be a world champion, what are you going to fight for? And Coach Wink, who's been on the show many, many times, kind of has always alluded to the fact that he doesn't want Carlos sticking around and taking unnecessary damage. And, you know, this is the story in MMA of a lot of other legends. You know, BJ Penn once upon a time was great, absolutely amazing. And it's just like nobody wants to see him come back and take more and more punishment. And that just always seems to be the story with MMA. And I don't really want Carlos Condit to come back and, you know, keep fighting these meaningless fights. Obviously, he loves fighting, and it's something that he's still very, very passionate about. But sometimes, you know, the body isn't really able to sort of do what your mind sets it to. And I'm not Carlos Condit. I'm not going to say he should retire. I don't know, you know, where his body's at, but he's definitely not the same fighter that he used to be. What do you think, Dennis?
And it's interesting because for me, I'm coming for a completely different perspective. I think if Carlos Condit fought Matt Brown, we'd be having a completely different conversation today.
Yeah,
and I think there was a good chance Condit would have won that fight. I think, I'm just more realistic. I mean, Condit was away. He has to get back in there. He has to get rid of the cage rust. It was tough for him to switch opponents last minute as well, I think, because obviously Oliveira, he didn't really train hard for this fight, but it was also sort of a change for Condit, who was, I suppose, expecting the Matt Brown. I think in this fight, Condit, he didn't look to me slow and old. He just looked like he had the wrong game plan. He looked like he sort of did the wrong stuff, and he looked a little bit, he didn't look very comfortable in there. He didn't look like the old Carlos Condit of old, and I think that upkick, that was a great point out by you, Casper. I think it was something that the commentary team missed initially, but that upkick definitely led to the finish of the fight. So I think if Carlos Condit is really looking to come back, I mean, I saw that post. Actually, I really liked that post. I really liked how he was honest about it, and I think a lot of fans really enjoyed reading it and were kind of I suppose it was a good way to finish out this fight by putting this post out for a lot of fans. But if he's serious about it, I think it's a situation where he's got to be realistic about the fact that he was away for quite some time. He fought a pretty tough guy in Oliveira, who's not the best in the division, but he's a guy who's really dangerous, like Sean said, well-rounded. And if he wants to come back, he's got to really come in with the right game plan. I do feel like we're looking at a Carlos Condit that's a little bit outdated. There needs to be like a Carlos Condit 2.0 that needs to take into the fact that you can't really fight off your back as much as you once used to, and really have to stop those takedowns, not let people take you down and stay on those feet. But I think if Carlos Condit took things seriously, if he came back against the right opponent and got his confidence, I don't think he'd go on to be champion, but I think he could still have some success in the division. When I look at him, I'm not looking like at a BJ Penn or Joe Lozon where I'm like shuddering and going, man, I can't believe these guys are still fighting because they look absolutely terrible. I still see a guy with some potential to have a couple of good fights in him, but I agree with you, Casper. The question is why he's doing it, and if it's for financial reasons, I mean, if he's still got a big contract with UFC, he wants to make some money, then it's probably not the right thing to do it for, even though, I mean, let's be serious, most guys primarily fight for the money. But if he wants to come back and wants to go out on a good night against a veteran like Matt Brown, like I know Matt had a terrible injury, and I don't know when he'll be back, but I'd be keen on seeing what Carlos Condit could do against a fellow legend like Matt Brown. Definitely don't put him up against the young lions in the division, but I want to see one more fight from him if he's keen on coming back. I want to see what he can do. I still believe in the fact that he could hang in there at some level in the division. The boat's not completely sailed for me on that point. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a good guy who loves Carlos Condit and wants him to do well. I don't know.
I feel like we're going to have this conversation in like a year or two, and you're going to be that guy who's like, stop, he's already dead.
No, I know. But that's the thing. It's tough because I know you and me and Sean, you know a lot of fighters, and I just want to be really, really careful about it because I like the way that sort of Ty and Tyson Pedro put it. In the fight game, you do go on and you do lose fights. And I know sometimes certain people in the media community and the MMA community, they'll jump to, oh, this guy should retire after he loses a number of fights. And there's no doubt about it. The Carlos Condit hasn't looked like the same Carlos Condit from his prime. But I'm just hesitant to put him into that BJ Penn, Joe Lozon category just yet because he still has something. I don't know, Sean, am I just being overly positive? There's still something there, right? When he came out there, it looked like he still had some speed. He still had some movement. He didn't look like he was he didn't look like a senior citizen getting off the bus about to get some soup from the deli, right?
And just quickly before you go, Sean, I just want to clarify. I'm definitely not saying that Carlos Condit is in that BJ Penn category, but I just feel like that happens overnight.
You're not saying he's going on the bus to the deli, Casper, to get some soup?
He's still spry. He's still shopping in the hip, trendy vegan supermarkets or, Whole Foods or whatever. He's still got it, man. He's like China, still cool. But I just feel like that transition from champion to, all right, now he's trying to get his title back. All right, now he's losing a few fights. Oh my God, now he's like BJ Penn. I just feel like that happens very, very quickly, and I feel like a lot of fighters just, don't even see it coming, and then it hits them out of nowhere. What say you, Sean?
I was just about to say the same thing.
I was just going to quickly say, and that's what Casper mentioned. So that was what's my earlier point. MMA community and MMA fans need to know, in MMA, there will be stretches where fighters lose. And I think sometimes we can't deal with it because I know sometimes I have that effect as well. There's a prospect and he loses one fight and everybody loses interest in the dude until he wins 2 or 3 fights in a row. And then if someone loses 2 fights in a row, it's like, oh my God, this guy's gone forever. And if he dares loses 3, then it's like, someone is having an unofficial funeral down the road for him, and there's treats and there's little cakes. There's little cakes that you get from the supermarket, little cupcakes, but they're black because they're not white because you don't want to be disrespectful. So I think sometimes people jump to that conclusion a little bit too soon and not realize that some fighters lose, and you don't put them, just like Casper said, into that BJ Penn category straight up. Anyway, you go, Sean. Sorry for interrupting.
I think you have to judge that time though, because there is a certain period of your career where you can lose 3 in a row and then come back and you might win 10 in a row. But there's a certain portion of your career as well where you lose 3 in a row and there's no coming back from that. You might win your next one, but you might lose 3 in a row again after that. And it's not too long ago that Joe Lozon had some petrol left in the tank. It's longer for BJ Penn and stuff, but I think Joe Lozon's a good example of it. Like as you mentioned there, he fell off that ledge very quickly. And if you're in Carlos Condit's position, do you want to go out with a little bit left in you, or do you want to go out getting absolutely the shit beat out of you by someone who isn't half as good skill-wise as you are? Is that what you want? That's why, I've no problem saying I think this guy should retire. Not with Carlos Condit now, not really. I think he has fights left in him. I think he did grand against Oliveira and he got choked. He didn't get, he didn't take that much damage or anything. He got a bit cut and stuff, but I think he's grand. But for guys, I've no problem saying if you've nothing else to prove either, even Frankie Edgar after his last fight, I was like, why is Frankie Edgar fighting on like that? Okay, if it's for money or whatever, but if you're talking about their career and their health, he's not going to win a championship again. I don't think. He's lost to Max Holloway. He didn't fight Max Holloway. He lost to Jose Aldo twice. He lost at lightweight. He lost to Brian Ortega when he was supposed to fight for the title, and now he's not going to title. What's the point of fighting on? Would you be better off not getting a few more knockouts? Is Frankie Edgar more likely to win a title or get knocked out twice more? I'd say he's probably more likely to get knocked out twice more, to be honest. And do you want to take that? And it's not just Frankie Edgar, not just Carlos Condit, but in MMA, I think we need to have those conversations more often. This is a dangerous sport, and you don't want people going in there and having one too many fights, because one too many fights can be too many. If they go in there and take that one little additional bit of damage, that might be something that might, it could hurt them for the rest of their life. And if Carlos Condit went out, now he owes nothing to anyone, himself, his team, the fans, the media, definitely not. And I'd be happy if he did it. But, it's obviously his choice. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying someone should go out and retire where they are. Leave with, you've nothing left to prove. I've no problem with that at all.
I agree with that. And I think with guys just quickly, because we've got to move on and talk about this Dustin Poirier fight and what's next for him. But just quickly, with guys like Joe Lozon and these guys like Johnny Hendricks, and you see them go in there and there's no improvements to the game, and they're just trying to fight the way they did in their prime. And especially Joe Lozon, standing there, taking those shots, not fighting in a smart way. That's brutal to see. So I think I agree with you, Sean, but I think it's also, you need to watch these fighters' performance. You need to see how they move. You need to see what they're doing. If it's a guy taking shots to the face and trying to relive, the days of old, I definitely agree they need to get out. But if it's a guy like Carlos Condit, like you mentioned, who looked grand over the weekend, you just got to give a bit of leeway and just be. You got to look at their performance, how they move, what kind of game plan they have. Are they trying to improve, or are they just trying to relive the good old days? So I definitely agree. There could be a guy that loses 2 in a row, and I'm like, man, this guy's got to get out of here because he looks absolutely terrible in there. He's just standing there taking shots to the face. He's trying to do moves that worked 10 years ago. He's got no improvement to his game plan whatsoever. This guy's got to go. But then you see a guy like a Condit who's moving around and looks like he's got something left in the tank. You go, all right, let's see what this guy has. So I'm curious with Frankie Edgar, because we're going to get your prediction coming up. But this is the fight that we'll be looking at where we're going to be saying, all right, he had this horrible loss in his last fight. What kind of Frankie Edgar are we seeing today? Is he still moving after that loss, after that knockout, after that damage? Is he still moving around the same? My question to you, Sean, would be, if Frankie Edgar goes out there and absolutely looks fantastic against Cub Swanson, would you sort of think, okay, this guy might have a bit longer in the division, or maybe I'd like to see this guy fight on for a bit longer? Or would you still be set on maybe liking possibly for him to retire?
It's not that I want him to retire, but I think
just for his own sake, yeah.
Yeah, it might be a good decision. And it's not just Frankie. I'd like MMA fighters to take that decision and retire at that stage of their career. Like Frankie Edgar has done enough fighting in his career now. But the thing about this weekend, and I know we'll probably get to it soon, is Frankie Edgar has ways of beating Cub Swanson, and we saw it the last day. He just takes him down. It's a 3-round fight as well. You could easily see Frankie Edgar taking Cub Swanson down 3 times and laying on him for 5 rounds. For 3 rounds, sorry. That's very, and then people say, "Oh, Frankie Edgar's back," but is he really back? Is Frankie Edgar going to beat Brian Ortega if he fights him? Is he going to beat Max Holloway? Even if he fought Jose Aldo again, is he going to beat him? No.
And we're talking about a potential win over a guy that he already beat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the I don't know if it's the word, but the fickleness is, what's the word for that? I don't know, but it's. Of MMA fans, you can be the best in the world 1 minute and you can be absolutely useless the next minute. And it's like Justin Gaethje, and I know we're getting on to Poirier now. I put out a tweet about Poirier having an absolutely brilliant game plan and just taking out a really good guy, and someone said, "Oh, Justin Gaethje's lost 2 in a row. Calm down." I was like, Justin Gaethje's a great fighter. He was 17-0 before that or whatever. And now he's useless because he lost to one of the greatest lightweights of all time, and Dustin Poirier, who's in the prime of his career, the best he's ever fought.
And it was a close fight. Justin could have won that fight. It was very, very close in those last few rounds.
Yeah, so people are very fickle, and I think whatever happens, if Frankie Edgar does get knocked out, everyone will be saying he should retire and he's finished. And if he wins, they'll be saying, "Oh, he's back. I want to see him. I'd love to see that Max Holloway fight." So that's just what's going to happen, and it always does.
Just quickly, while we're on that topic, Casper, a lot of people sort of talking about the fight was amazing. By the way, it blew me away. I loved watching it. Both fighters put everything on the line. It's one of those fights where I think it's important to have fights like that for free at homes. Because if you're not a UFC fan and you do catch a glimpse of that, and you're just a casual dude that knows nothing about the sport, it's a good way to capture new fans. But the ratings did come out, and it's one of the lowest ratings in quite some times, which kind of dumbfounds me. I guess people didn't really know much about Gaethje going into this. But Casper, just quickly, what do you think should be next for Dustin? Because a lot of people are talking about him possibly getting a title shot. Do you think Dustin Poirier should be in the discussion to get a title shot next, or do you think someone else should be getting that title shot next?
I mean, he could potentially be in the discussion, but I still think it's a long and a short discussion at the same time. I think it's still Conor McGregor. I mean, this is one of those things where a guy gets a big win over the weekend and we kind of forget, or some people forget everything that happened prior. What happened to Eddie Alvarez? What happened to, Conor McGregor? What happened to Tony Ferguson? Tony's a different case because he's obviously sidelined. He's looking at potentially 9 months recovery. I think if not Conor, it should be Tony. I know a lot of people will think that's crazy. I know Dana White will say, no, we're not going to make that a headline. And I understand. If not Conor, then Tony. But Conor is still the fight to make for Khabib. If you're looking at, defending the belt, I don't think they do it in Russia, but, wherever they do it, that'd be a massive fight. And it's only gotten bigger, with this whole bus fiasco If that fight, for whatever reason, doesn't happen, I could see potentially Eddie Alvarez getting in there. I still think he's the bigger name, more than Dustin Poirier. You know, people obviously know him from UFC 205. He's a former champion. And I don't know. I also feel like Eddie Alvarez is maybe a tougher matchup for Khabib, so I could very much see either the UFC or even Khabib's management not really wanting that fight over Dustin, just because if someone does beat Khabib, then you have Khabib versus Conor kind of goes out the window, and that's a really, really hot matchup. Yeah, I don't know. I think Dustin Poirier, maybe he might be a default guy. I'm not sitting here saying that he doesn't deserve it, but I just think that's a little bit unlikely. Although it's kind of interesting because apparently Dustin was on the MMA Hour and he was saying that apparently Khabib's management was, you know, feeling things out, and apparently he's the front runner to get this title fight, which kind of blows me away. How if you're Khabib's management, how is Conor McGregor not the front runner? I mean, you know, if you're a manager, wouldn't you want to get paid as much as possible? Wouldn't you want your client to be paid as much as possible? Surely you're going after that Conor McGregor fight. What do you think, Sean?
Who's his manager again?
Ali Abdelaziz. We all know that. And, sorry. And just quickly, also, Eddie Alvarez already beat Justin Gaethje, and he did it quicker than Dustin Poirier. So I'm not really about to pull the rug out from Eddie Alvarez on that one. I think, and you know, I know the rankings don't mean a whole lot, but Eddie Alvarez, if you want to get technical, he's ranked above. Sean, what were you gonna say?
I don't think
he said it.
I did say it. In fairness, I did. But on
the arms across, you're so uncomfortable with this now, Sean.
I will say Ali bringing Dustin's name into the fold makes a lot of sense to me, because Dustin's got a sort of a big boom after this fight. Everybody's loving Dustin. And matchup-wise, you put Dustin against Khabib. Let's say Khabib doesn't get Conor McGregor. Matchup-wise, you think Dustin would be a great matchup for Khabib. Khabib goes in there, takes him down, dominates it on the ground, and finishes it, you would think. So maybe that's a bit better than if he had to fight a Tony Ferguson, where we know the fight would be a lot more difficult. I don't know.
Or Alvarez.
Yeah.
I think Poirier could be a difficult fight for him. Like I mentioned on Twitter the other day, he did a great job of stopping Justin Gaethje's forward motion, or at least making him pay for his forward motion. And if he can do that to Khabib, and I know it's a lot different, the way he fights is a lot different, but Khabib does go in kind of headlessly forward like Justin Gaethje, even more headlessly forward Justin Gaethje. And Dustin Poirier hits very, very, very hard. You know, he's up there. He doesn't hit as hard as McGregor, but he's up there as the top 2 or 3 hitters in that division, I think. So he has a chance. And if he can push Khabib back, stop him pushing forward, that's going to make Khabib's takedowns tougher. Poirier is a pretty good wrestler. He can stop them, and he definitely win that fight if he either stays there. But I obviously still pick Khabib. But who gets the title shot? You know, we all want it to be McGregor, but McGregor has a court case coming up in June. How's that going to go? Are they going to book him in a fight before that? We know Khabib has Ramadan coming up, so they don't really need to. I think they can wait to see how that goes and make that. So I don't think we're going to find out for another 2 or 3 months who's going to get the title shot. I'd obviously, you know, pick McGregor. We all want to see McGregor go against Khabib. I've said it so many times that it'd be a tragedy if that fight never happens. But I'd love to see Poirier. I'd love to see Eddie Alvarez, either of them. I don't want to see Tony Ferguson. You can't make that fight again, and he's going to be out for ages anyway because that knee injury is really bad. But Poirier, like his speech afterwards, I know we're going to talk about that as well. It was just brilliant, and I tweeted out as well, the UFC need to promote a guy like that and promote a speech like that. Get him on Sports Center and get him on a talk show to talk about it, to tell his story. You could see him mean something like that, and. You know, people. I'm kind of sick of this bullshit. Like everybody's trying to be Conor McGregor and everybody's trying to be Chael Sonnen. And when people actually talk from their heart, like they used to do in MMA, it used to be something I loved about MMA. But now I've just stopped listening to interviews and just I don't give a shit what people say about it, talk about it anymore. But when a guy comes out like that, and says something like that, you want to hear it. And, you know, whether, you know, if you have a guy on here who says something like that and I hear about it, come on, I hear it. Or if Ariel has him, like, you know, it's people, they need to promote that, I think, the UFC, and make a better job of it. And it made me want to see that fight. It made me want to see him try to reach for it, you know, and that doesn't happen that often anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, because you put it perfectly. Everyone's trying to be Chael Sonnen. Everybody's trying to be Conor McGregor. And even when Chael Sonnen tries to be Chael Sonnen now, it's difficult to watch. Tough to watch over in Bellator.
It's an old
even
shtick.
Conor McGregor, I feel like some of his powers are going. You know, sometimes he'll say something that doesn't quite sound so good, and it doesn't get the reaction that it once did. So I think it's important for fighters to know they can speak from the heart. And I think the key is, not going backstage and coming up with, some kind of story where you think, oh, people will relate to this. I think the key is just to be honest, stand in front of that mic and just say what's on your mind, because it could be two sides of things. We've dealt with so many fighters who want to be PR savvy and not say anything. Guys like Sage Northcutt. There's a lot of guys like that people don't know about because they haven't hit the limelight yet. But those guys are too afraid to say anything because they want to be, I don't know why, they think the UFC are going to like them more if they just stick by the books. And then you got guys on the other hand trying to be like Conor McGregor, and you got guys like Covington. Al was a little bit like that at certain points. And after a while, it just sort of goes into one kind of big thing, and you can't differentiate what anybody says. So I think great on Dustin for doing that. And it didn't look like Dustin was really, planning it or anything like that. No. It just came out. He was emotional. It was honest. It was real. And that's what fans like to see. And I think a lot of fighters, last week we had an interview with Stephen Thompson.
Legend.
Obviously, you were on the show as well, Sean. And he just sat on the couch, and he was just, talking from the heart. Wasn't talking trash, but just honest about the fact that he doesn't believe Darren Till. It was a wise move by the UFC to put him against Darren Till and sort of use his name to build him up. And spoke from the heart and said the truth that, hey, if this fight doesn't play out like the UFC thinks, and I stop him in the first or second round, it's not going to look good for the UFC. So this is a guy, and also saying, look, it's a bit weird for me to go to Liverpool considering I'm ranked a bit higher. But this is not a guy talking trash. This is a guy just being honest about the situation and what's going on. And I think and people enjoyed that interview, and we really enjoyed doing that interview. And I think more fighters need to be like that. And when we interview fighters, I know this because I feel this so much. Some fighters have it seems like they have more pre-planned answers now. Yeah. It seems like they're just say what you feel on the spot. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it, and don't try and come up with media bites for media. I feel like fighters are now, trying to come up with little headlines in their head before you speak to them because they see MMA fighting or Bloody Elbow or somebody putting up an article with that line. Just speak from your mind. I know, we love Israel Adesanya. But I know in that post-fight press, in that post-fight thing in the octagon, it was one of those things where he tried to sort of push something. It didn't seem organic or right, and it kind of fell flat. Mm-hmm. And I think people just need to be careful with that kind of stuff. I don't know.
One thing about McGregor as well, one of his most famous lines is, "I talk and I talk and I talk, but I back it up." But now all he's doing is talking and talking and talking. There's no backing up, and that's why I think it's gone a bit stale. That is actually, it is though. You can only do so much talking for so long, and people are going to get sick of it. People want to see him fight, and if he was still doing it, still fighting, still going out beating lads, and still talking like he does, I think it wouldn't be getting old. I think people would still like it, but. No, what's he gonna say? Calling out everyone, you're not gonna fight any of them. So it's gone a bit stale. And this is Chael's stick is still grand. It's still good the odd time you see it, but I think we've just oversaturation of Chael now, and he's podcasting and everything, which is great. But I have no problem with it. But we just hear too much from him. Like before, you'd hear a Chael's hand interview maybe twice a year with Ariel, and it was great. But now we just hear too much from him, I think.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when Chael sort of tells stories, he tells them all like they're these massive stories. Like he could tell a story about like going in and buying gum, and he's like, and then the guy looked at me, and that's all relevant. It's like, Chael, you're buying gum. Like there's no need to hype up this story. It's a very basic story. You don't need to explain the fundamentals of gum to us. We get it. We know what gum is. But like, just he breaks things down, and it's like, yeah, dude, we know. But I was gonna say like a lot of times like. I think there's two sort of factors. One is like you covered, Dennis, is like being genuine, is just sort of saying things that sort of come from the heart. And I feel like sometimes with fighters, when they have these pre-planned trash talk, they come out and they have a zany liner, and they're at a press conference and they get their opponent with some great trash talk, and you kind of go, oh, that's pretty good. But it's pre-planned, so when their opponent comes back with something good, they have nothing, and it's kind of like the aura is shattered. That illusion of like, wow, this person's really zany and witty, it gets shattered very quickly. And I think the other thing is also relatability. I think one of the reasons why people love Dustin Poirier's speech afterwards is because we can all kind of relate to that. We've all had dreams, or we all have dreams, and I think
we had dreams. They're being destroyed, Casper. Don't lie. That's how we all ended up on this show. It's in the middle of the morning here for sure. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I think that's why we're all living vicariously through Dustin Poirier, because we're like, our dreams may be dead, but maybe if Dustin Poirier can go in there and do that and make his wife proud, etc., etc. And I think when you can relate to a guy, and I think even with Stephen Thompson, a lot of the things that he said, like the way he broke everything down. It was kind of like he's just thinking aloud and he's saying things as they're coming to his mind. And, you know, I think the honesty factor, like even with Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor, I'm not saying anybody can become Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, be a huge star that transcends the sport just by being honest, but you know, they said what was on their mind, and they didn't really give a fuck about the consequences for the most part, and people loved it for it. People love honesty. I think that's one of the reasons. I know he's polarizing, but I think that's one of the reasons why people love Joe Rogan, because he just kind of says what's in his mind, and he says a lot of things that maybe, you know, people think you shouldn't say or you can't say, and then he says them, and people go, yes, I like that. That's what I was thinking. So I think a lot of fighters, you know, kind of need to do that. But I also think there's a difference between fighters you know, saying things that gets them fans and saying things that gets them attention. Not everybody can have a speech like that and have everybody, you know, get behind them. I mean, Brian Ortega, after the Frankie Edgar win, talked about his charity and stuff like that. Super, super, super nice, but people weren't exactly like, oh my God, now I'm going to buy this guy's pay-per-view. Now, you know, people loved Brian Ortega because of it, but it didn't necessarily help him in terms of becoming a star. So I think there's sort of two big differences there.
I did like how Robert Downey Jr. though took his foundation.
Dude, that
and
was
put
sick.
Money to it. Yeah, that was crazy.
So
Love
good.
Robert Downey Jr. But just quickly, the worst thing is, I know we all feel this way when, and this isn't trash talk, but I think all fighters should be prepared. If you win a fight and someone asks you who you want next, don't tell us that UFC will decide for you and you don't mind, or your manager will decide for you, or you don't know. Have someone in mind at all times. Damn it. Anyway, know what's going on in your division. Pay some attention. Anyway. Quickly, as we wrap up, Sean, I just want to get a couple quick predictions from you for this weekend. We mentioned him before, Frankie Edgar versus Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson saying he almost left the UFC before they gave him a sort of a better deal. So this is a guy that's sort of, it's interesting to see where he's at mentally, Cub Swanson, and also obviously Frankie Edgar bouncing back from that loss. Who do you think is going to win it this weekend?
I think Frankie Edgar will win, but with a couple of caveats. Actually, over on our Patreon, I did a rewatch of the Ortega fight, and I was talking about maybe ways that Cub Swanson can win this fight. And obviously, after a big knockout like that, it's going to be easier to knock Frankie Edgar out if it's ever easy to knock him out. But there was also a stat before that fight that I believe Frankie Edgar had more time in the octagon than any other fighter ever, or top two or something anyway. So when you get to that level, that's great, but it also means you don't have much time left. So he's taken a lot of damage. You know, he took the most damage he's ever taken, obviously getting knocked out in his last fight. And that was only, 7 weeks ago or something like that, coming back. So if Cub Swanson can keep it standing for a long period and land, I know he's not the biggest hitter, biggest knockout artist in the world, but he can, he can hit Frankie and knock him out. But I think Frankie will, rinse and repeat, use his footwork, use his speed, use his takedowns, get Cub Swanson down and win a 3-round decision.
One more cheeky prediction, Sean, and this is a big one. A fight I'm really, really looking forward to. Kevin Lee versus Edson Barboza. Both guys trying to come off tough losses. Who do you think takes this one?
I'm picking Barboza, but I think Kevin Lee is a guy who is improving bit by bit all the time. And I think I didn't think it a while ago, but I do think it now that Kevin Lee is going to be a really good fighter. And I know he fought for the interim title, but I think he'll probably fight for a title again, if not win one in years to come. But I think it might be a little bit too soon. Barboza has unbelievably good takedown defense, and if he can take him down, is he going to be able to beat Barboza on the feet? I'm not so sure yet. I think his boxing is good, but it's nowhere near the striking level of Edson Barboza. On the ground, he can definitely beat him there. He can take him down in submitting, but I think he's going to find it hard to take him down, and I think Barboza will probably win maybe 2 of the 3 rounds in a decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lee did it. But I am just nicking Barboza unless there's big strides after being made for Kevin Lee, and they're coming, but I'm not sure they're there yet.
Do you think also this is sort of going to be a good look into where Kevin Lee is at? I mean, obviously it is, but if he can go there and sort of, if he does go in there and he just gets picked apart on the outside, it kind of shows very much where him and Khabib are in terms of differences on levels. But if he can go there and say choke out Barboza, the first or second round, that would sort of escalate him to the very top of that list, I think. Not very top, but very close to the top in sort of beating Barboza more dominantly than Khabib did.
That is a fair point as well. And also, even before we get to that, there's the weight cut as well. He's said many times that he struggles with the weight.
He's still at 155.
Yeah, talking about going up to welterweight. So that's a big part. Is this fight even going to happen? No, Frank Edgar they'll probably give Frank Edgar another title shot. They'll make it for the interim fight.
Yeah.
But if he does do that, it would be good. You know, I agree. If he did beat Barboza, I think that's a huge win. I think Barboza's a really good guy, and if you beat him, you're a really good guy. So if Kevin Lee does beat him at this stage of his career, I don't think there's many guys in the UFC that Kevin Lee won't beat, to be honest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it's going to be an exciting fights on the weekend. Just quickly, you mentioned Patreon. Tell us quickly, Sean, what is happening at the moment? What's coming up? Because I know you mentioned to us last week, fans can suggest topics that you guys do shows about. There's obviously a lot of extra content. I know there's been a lot of great response from fans. Really good value and for your buck. What is coming up next week that people can look out for on that?
Yeah, so our target was set at 100 and we've 94, so we're nearly there. So 6 people listening to this, go over there and do it. So coming up this week, I have already a Q&A out after the podcast. We have an hour and a half long podcast, episode 159. Then I did a Q&A, another 20-minute podcast. I have a UK MMA show coming out. What day have we out on Wednesday? I'm not sure what day is out. It'll probably be out by the time this is out. And I have the rewatch as well coming, where I go back and look at Frank Edgar.
It's like UFC Fight Pass. It's like UFC Fight Pass.
It's better. It's even better. It's better.
There's going to be the exchange with Sean Sheehan, just like random people that are awake in the middle of the night over there. I love it. I love it. You're gonna end up selling off your Patreon to like Ari Emanuel and WME-IMG when they realize it's more successful and has more subscribers than UFC Fight Pass. I love it. And ESPN and Fox Sports are going to have to do a deal just to buy you out because it's going to be so popular. So in the meantime, guys, make sure to subscribe because this is blowing up quick. We hear a lot of great stuff and the content is really, really good. And a big thank you to the guests from this week, obviously Israel Adesanya, Tyson Pedro, Tai Tuivasa, Jake Shields, and of course our good friend, our brother from Ireland, Sean Sheehan. Make sure to follow all those guys. Make sure to support Sean. Make sure to support Severe MMA. Make sure to support your podcast and your MMA community. And we will be back talking more smack, talking more news, talking more everything next week on Submission Radio. Thanks for tuning in, guys.